Well, unless, I mean, if you think it's prudent to wait just for a few more folks, I'm fine with that.
Well, I'm looking to see, um,
Okay, so is everyone who's in the waiting room now here? Up, you're muted.
sorry.
Mhm.
Yes, I believe everybody who was waiting to get in is in.
Okay. Great. Okay, well, welcome everyone to the June 12th, 2024 Dover Conservation Commission hearing. Lori, if you could repeat our permission to Zoom this, please.
Sure. Following guidance issued by the governor regarding the open meeting law, the public meeting will be held remotely. Individuals wishing to participate may do so by using Zoom to join the meeting. By video conferencing using a computer or tablet, please use the link listed on the agenda. Or to join by phone, please call the phone number listed on the agenda and enter the ID and the passcode, and the meeting is being recorded.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so first off this evening is 12 and 14 Miller Hill. Last week we voted to approve the wording for the enforcement order, or the intent of the enforcement order. Tonight we're looking at some let's see, reviews of the of that enforcement order so that we can tidy everything up. Let's see, Janet, why don't you fill us in based on your enforcement order and your review of the reviews?
Sure. So the purpose of this amended, will be the second amended enforcement order to basically memorialize the requirements in the restoration plan, which also includes the invasive management plan and the schedule. So it's really putting some teeth to your approval from our last meeting. What I would suggest, the comments I saw were mainly administrative in nature and correcting some dates or details. I didn't see anything of real substance. So I'd recommend that the two attorneys that submitted comments just share their screen and go through those. I think we can do that fairly quickly. And the commission could vote on whatever has been revised.
Let's see, can both attorneys share at the same time? I'm not sure if that's I don't think we've experienced that.
No, I would, Caroline had more comments. I would start with Caroline's comments and Attorney Brooks' comments.
Okay. Carolyn, are you prepared to do that? Or will you be in a moment? Up, and you're very quiet.
Is that better?
There we go. Yes.
Sorry. Oops. It says hosted.
Oops. Are you using your phone in addition to your computer, or
No, sorry. Installed a new. I apologize. Can you hear me now?
barely.
It's muffled. Something
not
might be over the mic.
Not consistently.
Okay. I just had a new microphone.
Oh, so the new microphone hasn't taken, and did you just plug your iPhone in?
I had to.
Yeah, we get like the first three words.
Okay.
And then
And John, I believe Sally's hand is up.
okay, while we're waiting for Caroline, Sally.
I just want to make sure that Kate Carter's logging in to let her in.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mhm. And did you see her, Lori?
No, I don't see her yet. Usually appears at the top of my screen once we've started, so I
Mhm.
don't miss anybody.
Okay.
I don't see her
Uh,
yet.
okay. Carolyn, why don't you give it a try again? You're currently muted.
I'm switching my phone. One more minute.
Oh, okay, fine.
You have not entered.
So while you're doing that, Caroline, I just want to check in with Peter Brooks. It looks like you're on your phone today.
Yes, I am, and I'm on the road, so I'm not going to be able to share. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you great. Of course, we don't see
Right.
you, and then we're just the
It's better
reverse on the other side. But your comments were not quite as extensive, and I think they sort of built on Caroline's. So we may be able to handle some of that by memory. But let me just check in with. I just wanted to double check and make sure that your technology was set up. No, we're watching Caroline move her mouth, but you are muted technically. It's the icon is showing up as muted.
Is my phone, can you get my phone?
Yeah, so
Am I
that
in the
is
waiting room?
no,
Is my
you're
phone
on.
number in the waiting room?
No, we see. Let's see. No, what? Although I just saw on your screen, you're almost synced up. You're much better. And now we don't hear you. Yeah, so it was coming through better. Try it again.
Can you hear me now?
We do. Yep.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about that, everyone. Technical difficulties, but I can share my screen now. See. Are you seeing the Word document? Nope.
We are seeing your homepage.
There we
There
go.
we go. Yep.
Okay. This first comment was just, if you
If you-
wanted to start off just.
Can you just magnify that just a little bit?
Yes.
Great.
Okay, this first comment was just simply if we wanted to use the first full name of the restoration plan first, and then we could just refer to it as a restoration plan going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Just clarifying the addresses here. Mostly just to simplify acronyms. Nothing major here. The Associated Invasive Species Management Plan. Down here, just adding that you voted to approve the restoration plan on the date, keeping everything consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing groundbreaking. Some clarifications on some addresses on where the violations occurred.
Can you so if you can just scroll. Okay, so you're basically now referring to bordering vegetative wetlands as BVW.
Correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
For this section, one suggestion we had was just to group the specific enumerated paragraphs by property. There's 12 Miller Hill and 14. We just suggested combining them to do that. Some formatting, nothing.
Let me just check in. Peter Brooks. I don't know if you had seen Caroline's edit for that, whoever that is. But Are you okay with combining 12 and 14? Since you seem to be.
Well, the
you're-
only issue, yeah, 14 does not have any responsibility for any of the work on 36, 38.
Mhm,
So we just need to be careful
mhm.
because they are separating their respective responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed, had set this out as two separate enforcement orders, with the work on 36, 38 being part of the enforcement order for 12 Miller Hill. And that's the way it should be maintained.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good point, given 14 Miller Hill is more peripheral on this. Caroline, do you have this is a little bit more tedious in terms of more precise wording, but do you see the rationale for that?
Yes, and I think we were just suggesting if this was going to be in one document, put all the 12 together and all the 14. If they're going to be separate documents, that's fine with us.
Mm-hmm. Let me just see the hard copy here. So, and Janet, what's your take on that? You had a rationale behind setting it up this way.
Yes, so the intent is to continue to have two separate enforcement orders, one for
Mhm.
12 that impacts 36, 38, and one for 14. I just added, just so I didn't have to repeat everything. I just called out the specific language for the two individual ones at the top.
Right, and you did them sequentially. So number 2 deals with language, one, and it's a repeat of 1, but it's just for particular those particular things, rather than taking those all out and putting 14 on a separate page. It's clear you're just copying the same thing at a sequential basis. That's what is happening here?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Fine.
So in Caroline, you're saying basically separate these out and put them on a separate page. 12 and
We weren't 100% sure if this is going to be one enforcement order or two separate. If it's separate, then we're on board with Janet's plan.
Mhm.
Makes
And
sense.
Janet, are you're viewing this as two separate enforcement orders?
Yes, that would be consistent with how we've
Okay.
handled it. Yep.
Okay. And somewhere I saw an email that Mr. Mallet, there was an agreement, or maybe I'm not clear on it. 14 is separate, but Mr. Mallet is involved in the enforcement order on 14 as well. Can somebody help me out on what I may have seen through this copious emails? Peter, do you know anything about that?
Well, no, they both are signatories to the Crawford contract, and much of that work jointly, but 12 is not responsible for the work on 14 and won't be a party to the enforcement order to 14 Miller
Got
Hill.
it. Okay. And then 14, was there some issue with 22? Is that does 22 adjoin 14?
Yes.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead if you wanted, Janet.
There was, I think it was a handful of trees were removed on 22, maybe 4 or 5. That's what
Okay.
it's included.
And that's the avowed responsibility of Mr. Montemaggiore?
Correct.
Okay. Then why don't we keep this as it's written here, so that we follow through with two separate enforcement orders going forward. Okay. Caroline, if you want to continue scrolling.
Sure. For this itemized number 5, only comment we had was, this is the main thing to be done. We thought it got a little lost. So maybe putting it towards the beginning, or even on the WPA form itself, the front of that form. But just, this was the main, restore the land according to the restoration plan is the main thing we're all after. So we're just looking for that to get prioritized higher.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. let me just, I'm just looking up here. Thank you. I think that makes sense. Janet, do you have anything, do you agree with that?
Yep, that makes sense.
Okay, great. Let's see, as we're moving along with this, Lori, are you writing down some of these changes? Or all of the changes?
I must have been copied on all these changes. I think maybe I don't have them all in front of me, but I
Well,
assume
I'm thinking more just as we go ahead, for example, here we just,
yeah, I
pulled
am
out-
writing down what you're saying, like as far
Okay.
as, you know.
Okay, so that we can go ahead and,
Yep.
rewrite these and get them out. Okay.
Yep.
Carry on, Caroline, please.
Okay. This is just consistently using the same words, property owner, the same acronym. We just added some language for the designated representatives and the trustees of reservations for monthly written progress reports that are required.
Mm-hmm.
Property owner. For paragraph 13, it's 13 and 18 seem to be duplicates. This is 13 here. And then I'll scroll down to 18 concerning the survival rate. So 13, you have reserves the right to ensure 90%. And then 18 is at least 90% surface area restoration.
Can you go back up to 13, please? Okay. Okay, so they're both talking about 2 growing seasons. No, and Peter was, did you scale that back in your review of looking at 90 for one season, 1 year, and 80 for the second year?
Well, that's what the restoration plan that was approved provides. It's 90% after 1 year and 80% or more thereafter. And
Okay.
if Steve's on, he can confirm that, but that's my understanding from the restoration plan of what we committed to, and the commission approved that plan.
Okay, so there is a difference between what you view and what Steve Roberti came up with to what Caroline has been directing us to. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so part of our discussion at the last meeting was that 90% was a high threshold, but that moving forward for a later clarification relative to the remaining basal inches that were not able to be basically squeezed into this plan of the trees that were cut down within the buffer, that we were looking at 90%, but that the in terms of bonding or planting off-site or things of that nature, that a case could be made looking for a waiver of that because of this 90% number. Now, I may not have been, remembered exactly what the restoration plan was calling for, but Steve, why don't you fill us in? Does your plan call for what Peter called out, which is 90% for the first year, and then 80% in essence as the net?
Correct, but it's also one of the clarifications that I had given to Peter is it's not percent cover, it's 90% survival. We switched to survival earlier on. I don't know what the percent cover is going to be after year 1 or 2 for trees and shrubs. It probably would be 90%, but we were using survival as the metric. So I think that was one of Peter's changes.
And is your restoration plan, is that a 5-year plan?
Yes.
Yeah, and I thought somewhere in here that that may have disappeared and become a 3-year plan. I don't know if that was as Janet wrote this up or where that or maybe I'm just making it up, but we'll continue through and see what we have here. So before we move on, Caroline, so I'm just reading your correction here. So you're referring to 90% of the surface area. And Steve, you're referring to 90% of total plant survival?
Yes, that's how the restoration plan's worded for the success standards. It's based on survival of the individual plants that are planted at each stage of the restoration plan.
And let's see, so and then I'm looking at Caroline's comment there from the 90 to 80, so that, yeah, it was the same thing. And so basically, as you can see, Steve, Caroline's comment about the 90 to 80, and she wanted that confirmation. And you're confirming that that's what the restoration plan sets forward, is that correct? Okay, and I think so on number 18, Caroline, where I don't know if that wording is 100% yours or if there was part of Janet's in there, since I don't actually.
Number 18 is all Janet. I didn't change anything. We were just calling to make sure that this wording or the wording that Attorney Brooks proposed to change it to 80% complied with the plan. We're
Okay.
happy to go with what the plan said. We just want to make sure that that language is correct.
Okay, so I think, Janet, it seems one of the things, given what Steve just mentioned, and we have been using those terms, do you see the rather than 90% of the surface area of having that word reflect the restoration recommendation, which is 90% of the how would you call it, Steve? The
Survival, that's how it's worded in the restoration plan. You could just change
survival,
percent
right?
cover, surface area, which I think are synonymous with survival.
I
So-
think, excuse me, John and Steve, this
Yeah.
is Paul.
Yeah.
I think what we want to say is of 90% of the plant specimens. So
Mhm.
because you're talking, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but individual stems.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that was one of the Scribner's errors that I wanted to point out, as it talks about survival of plant species. I think it should be plant specimens. So of the plants that go in, for every 100 plants that get put in the ground, 90 of those have to survive.
For that first year. Well,
Right.
that right. And
Correct, Steve?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so okay, so I see what Caroline's doing there.
So I just had a clarification.
Mhm.
The table 9 success standards in the plan on page 41. So percent cover, year 1, there's going to be a baseline count or determination. Do we know generally how much percent cover the planting plan represents?
No, not until we do
So-
the first year analysis to know like what that cover is going to be.
So I think part of the question I have on that is that the cover, it seems, Steve, what you've mentioned, concerns about trying to figure out, calculate coverage, is that you need a certain growing or more than one season to have things bloom out, or, to grow, to get an idea of cover, versus survivability of, of the planting itself seems to be predicated on a certain amount of spacing. Is that correct? Where
In a way,
you're-
yeah, that's a one way to look at it.
And so that and in that spacing, in essence, the first planting would be spaced out to cover 100% of the disturbed area. And then to then go back and do an inventory after a growing season to make sure that you maintain 90% of that, or you're not covering everything.
Well, the whole area will be planted with on whatever spacing is appropriate for the areas, but
Mhm.
the plants within there are going to leaf out and fill that volume of space over time, and
Mhm.
so that's why we were going with survival of the actual plants. We don't know
I
what
think
the
that makes,
cover
I
will
think
be.
it's easier to quantify something like
Exactly,
that.
that's why we went that way. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so let me see what Caroline's put in here. Okay, Janet, would based on what Caroline just wrote into 18, does that better describe your mutual understanding of what's at stake, what we're trying to do here?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now, then, relative to the redundancy with 13, do you want to scroll up, Caroline, please? And so to ensure, and I still like the idea of, I don't view it as being that redundant. If you could just change that to 90% of survival. Or whichever wording you used down below.
But isn't it actually
Well,
80
actually,
at 2
what's
years?
that? Oh, well, I was just gonna say, and that's actually with that, so it would be 80% survival. Mhm.
Correct, Steve?
Okay,
Okay.
why don't we move on?
Okay. And number 20, we were just asking for clarification. It's all permanent bounds. I assume to mark the wetlands. And I don't know if at one point, I believe it was the last meeting, I think Steve had requested the commission's required language that should be on the sign that is talked about in 21. And so I didn't know if that had occurred and that was already incorporated into the restoration plan, or if Steve was still waiting on that language. But just clarification on the what these permanent bounds were intended to mark, I assume the wetlands, and on what properties these would be going on.
Okay, Janet, why don't you take that?
Yep, so I can send the specs. Generally what we do, so we require this for almost all our projects. And usually, once the project's completed, I meet with the owners and we walk the site and agree on the specific locations. And the bounds in the signage are usually at the limit of work line. So in this case, I think we would want to walk the field and work with the trustees and all of the owners to identify the appropriate locations for the bounds and the signage, but I can send the specs. I will send this
I'm sorry, go ahead.
for those, but I think at this point it would be hard to say how many of each we would require.
And typically this is done after the planting, is that correct?
Yes, after the project's completed. Yeah.
Okay. And the wording is, so the wording in this at 21, is there any additional wording beyond that 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 would be incorporated in that? Would those be some of the signs that are fewer than the bounds that would talk about no herbicides and things of that nature, or this is just the wording that you'll be looking for in total?
No, so there is specific language that the commission's approved, so I will send those out. I'll send that specific
Okay.
language out. Yeah.
Okay.
And this would just be the no dumping, no activity sign, not the no fertilizers or pesticides, because I don't think that's even an issue back here. This is just to be natural. Yeah.
Okay. So, I see this could be done as a clarification. I think it makes reference to it here, and then we can get those things out there. I don't see that's a need to hold anything up on. In terms of the bounds, we're not looking to have concrete or granite everywhere. It's just there'll be usually a few areas that become pretty obvious once things are planted that we don't want people going beyond, and that's the way we've handled it in the past. Any questions on any parties relative to that?
I think Sally might have her hand up.
Okay, Sally?
Yeah, I think, just recognizing that it is sort of a unique situation on 36, 38, that it's mainly uplands. So, yeah, we would like to be, I think having some sort of similar signage of just, restoration area. I mean, obviously it wouldn't say wetland if it's on the upland, but, we want this to continue to grow, not to, just to be, once the plantings are done and established, to just let it be and start,
Well, see,
slowly turning back into a forest.
Since we're, joining these things, even things that are out beyond the BVW, would bounds along the property line and signage suit that, as opposed to having any signage inside of 3638?
There is there are the boundary of 3638 was always clearly marked, so,
Is that via the
Awful.
stone wall, or were there bounds?
well,
there?
the stone wall is the division between the, trying to remember which way north is up, but yeah, the stone wall running down the hill, that is, but there's also concrete bounds. There's one at the corner at the top of the stone wall, and then there's one in the woods, so maybe some sort of, I think there was an intermediate pin put in to be the corner between 12 and 10.
Well, why don't we,
Saw that
well,
moving
I think we can cover that relative to this. I don't know, Carolyn, did you just add something? I saw stuff moving on the screen.
No, we're
Oh,
just
it
looking
didn't.
ahead.
Oh, okay. So the yeah, I think that can be covered under this particular clause. Since we've agreed early on that we'll be covering things beyond the BVW. Okay. Okay, carry on, Caroline.
For paragraph 22, just bringing this to the commission's attention, this might be up for a vote tonight to clarify this, or I know Goddard had submitted a kind of a request for a waiver on this condition.
I know I actually haven't seen that, and maybe it's just because I couldn't weed it out through all the emails, but that, are you basically, is that referring to what we discussed at the last meeting? That the
Yes.
Okay, and so let me see this.
John, I believe Peter Brooks, he's the one that sent you the letter about that.
Okay. Peter, do you have an idea of when that might have been sent out?
Yeah, it's dated March 29th. No,
March 20? No.
yeah,
May
I've got the
29th?
wrong thing. It must have been May 29th and a typo in the letter. Yeah.
Oh, and it came out from you? Okay, letters concerning guidelines, I see. So I remember seeing the performance bond and okay, let me pull up the other one.
I probably have it if you can't find it. I can
Yeah, no,
share it.
well, I can't actually, I pulled it up on a different computer, so I can't share it. If you want to go ahead and share that.
Yeah, let me just pull it up. May 20. Let me. Okay, hold on. I will reshare now.
Great, thank you. So as you scroll down there, for folks who have seen this for the first time, stop there. Basically, we normally call for one, a ratio of actually 1.5 to 1, not a ratio of 1 to 5. And then that's corrected in the following sentence there. If you can, it's basically saying that this is more comprehensive than the guidelines. And part of this, as I understood, was the desire for Mr. Mallet et al. To have some guidance on whether they would be responsible for something in addition to what we're trying to establish in this particular enforcement order here. And so we discussed at our previous meeting that since they were presenting goals for survivability that exceeded what we were requiring, that if monitored properly, that they would meet or exceed that by doing this with a higher survivability over a 5-year period. Is that, Steve Roberti, is that in essence what you're claiming here?
Correct. Yeah, no, and this is based on some of the previous discussions on this that we had with Paul McManus when we were going through some of the initial calculations. We just kind of took that and reused it to make the case here that, you know, we're going to be above and beyond, you know, the threshold, you know, of a
Okay.
normal 2-year 75% restoration site.
Okay, and Caroline,
goal,
can
at
you
least.
scroll down to the table there, please? Okay. So Steve, why don't you walk us through the table here, what you're presenting here.
All right, yeah. So we're just basically trying to like illustrate that under a normal plan, you know, the 75%, which only goes out to 2 years as 75%, we did some kind of reasonable assumption of what happens at years 3, 4, and 5 under, you know, essentially an unmonitored site, you know, that you kind of plant and you get 75% 2 years and you walk away from. There's not a lot of studies on that. We just made some reasonable assumptions on how that might change over time. And then we put in, you know, we use that as the metric to look at what that means for the DBH survival compared to what we have planted or proposing to plant. And with the 85, you know, 100% in year 0 when we plant, and then 85, you know, going down to year 5 where we'll have 80%, you know, what that means for surviving DBH of trees. And then, you know, we show that we're essentially meet the 1.5 to 1 standard.
The threshold, right? And
threshold.
If I can I add to that assumption there that because of irrigation and active monitoring, that with a higher survivability at the end of 5 years, you'll have a larger amount of DBH just due to 5 years of growth?
Correct. Yeah, we didn't even get into that, but and we may even have more for survival. It's hard to tell, you know, how far out, but you know, and essentially these will be more cared for than a normal site. You know, there's always some stochastic event that can happen that nobody can predict, but outside of that, you know, this is what we're shooting for.
So commissioners, this seems relatively straightforward. Do any commissioners have any questions concerning this? And so
Janet has her hand up.
go ahead. Thank you, Janet.
So I just saw this provision as the commission is reserving the right to require an additional look. And I would just recommend leaving it in there. It's a may, it's not a shall. So I would just hesitate on giving up that right.
On a practical point, given the level of active management on this, and the request that they be have some sense of knowing what, you know, whether or not they'll be on the hook for anything else. It seems to me if we granted this, it's clear they're on the hook for the 80%, and they've agreed to that. And if they do the 80%, they will meet our 1.5 to 1 ratio. What's the if we gave up that right, or well, if we voice it in a way that I think I see the 80% being a hard, fast number. What do we lose by giving them the just the knowledge that that's what we're going to be using as a metric.
Yeah, I don't think you're giving anything up, so I just thought it might be good to include, but if the plan is not implemented as outlined, then you do certainly have all sorts of authority to make
Mhm.
additional requirements. Yeah.
Oh,
So
yes.
I have
Yeah.
no problem taking that out.
Okay, then I think so on something like that, that would seem to be something that at least should be voted on by the commissioner to allow that but Amy, you have your hand up?
Yeah, so I think this had to do with Jim's concern that the number that the trees that are being replanted are so much smaller than trees that were taken out, that
Mhm.
the disparity between the DBH that was taken out, it's not whether or not the trees that are there are going to be surviving. It's more related to the fact that a lot of really large trees were taken out, and there's no way that you can replicate that with 2.5-inch trees.
Mhm.
That
Well, that's
and have them
that's
survive at all. So
Mhm.
I guess I think
Well, I
that's
think
why the 1.5 to 1.
so there was and there's a shortfall of I would say I don't actually know what the number is. I'm assuming it's almost 200 inches. So yeah, there's a shortfall of around 20%. Now, if you can slide back down, please, to the table. So what we see is the guidelines call for 1,029 inches, and they're looking at planting 838 inches. So it's for 191 inch shortfall from our 1.5 to 1. Am I reading that correctly, Steve?
So I guess I thought it was a lot more than 1,000 EBA were taken out. But maybe
I'm not, Janet, do you know anything about whether these
I
inches
can't
here,
remember in so long.
are these inches here, Steve, are they the ones strictly within the buffer, or are they for the entire site, or what's the 1,029 referring to?
I'd have to go back and check. I don't know off the top of my head.
I
Okay.
think it is in the buffer, and I think that's what Amy's thinking of, but you can't apply this 1 to 1.5 to uplands.
No, and there we never said that we would.
Yeah.
And the plan itself is what people have reviewed for that. So I think my rationale for this, as I talked things through at the last meeting as well, was that if we plant any more than the 838 inches roughly, we run into issues of affecting the survivability of trees that are too close together. And that the learned assumption was that with irrigation and direct management, the survivability of this by shooting for 80% rather than 75%, that we will have a better level of survivability here, and we actually don't have another location for 190 inches to be planted, even though we have a regulation that calls for that. And as I mentioned to Steve a moment ago, with that sort of active management, the level of DBH, surviving DBH, trees that don't die, we should have wider trees, thicker, higher average DBH trees than we would if we just left it after 2 years. Does that, and this would allow us to focus on this and then move forward on other things. So how does that answer your question, Amy?
Yeah, I mean it's more whether Jim's happy with it, but I guess he's not here, so he can't. object.
No, I think everyone's upset, and not to overlook the fact that this was a cluster. but we're trying to come back with the best management plan. But,
No, I think it's a great management plan. I don't want to slow up the process.
okay, so,
I'm happy. I
so,
just wanted to remind people why we were looking at this.
yeah, no, I think, well, no, I certainly remember Jim's concern. And, so given that, and given that we normally require that, I am wondering, whether, we should make a specific vote that accepts that, as a waiver to our 1.75 due to the, enhanced, management plan. Janet, do you have anything to say on that?
I think by accepting the plan, you are de facto allowing that, but I would not recommend a formal vote on that.
Interesting. Okay, so that I see your point there. And I don't have a problem with that. Amy, what's your sense?
Yeah, I don't think I would be too comfortable with voting to waive it, but if we just are silent on it, then.
Well, we incorporate this as a, we can we incorporate this document into the restoration plan?
I don't think so.
But I think you're gonna take out, you're just gonna remove this,
Well, actually, this is already in the restoration plan. Is that correct?
the,
Not this particular table, but the net effect is what they've proposed in the
right,
restoration
I mean,
plan.
I think we're just silent on it, like Janet said. We're just
Mhm.
gonna take out this number 22, correct?
Well, 20 to 2023. I mean, there's a whole chunk.
Well, let's take a look at,
No, the 22 is just saying that that if that may require them to make compensatory or mitigating measures at an offsite location. But if they can't meet the 80%, then
Yeah,
we
but
have all kinds of
if you scroll up, it's 20 to 21. Look at all, so 20.
no, then
no,
21,
the permanent bounds are,
22.
No,
Yeah,
I'm just saying what is highlighted. So we all
I
have to
know,
be
no,
the
no,
same.
just 22. 22 doesn't need to be included. Is that correct? That's
Right.
what is being
discussed
proposed.
currently. Yeah,
Yes.
and what I've heard is that the parties are looking for closure as opposed to something that's open-ended. And since if we accept the 80% for 5 years out, that pretty much nullifies our concerns, as we've discussed at
And
the
if we-
previous meeting, this one.
And if we don't get the 80%, then
It's,
well,
it was-
then all the rest doesn't, this isn't gonna save us. If they
No,
can't
we
get
still-
80%, then we have ways to get
yeah, we
more
still have the ability to enforce the 80%.
VH out of them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing then is a deduct of 20, let's see. So you already took that.
Was 22, but now it's,
Yeah, so you're redlining all of 22. Okay, great. And okay. From both parties, is that you've heard from the commission, is that okay with both parties?
That's fine with me.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
No. And Carolyn?
Yeah, that's fine with us.
Okay, great. Okay, why don't we carry on? Is there anything else to be that you wanted to touch base on, Carolyn?
I don't believe so. We didn't know if you wanted to call out the specific, the 2 documents that were voted on May 22nd, just a suggestion.
I think we, no, I think they're fine to be in there, and as documents, we did vote on them. Okay.
Yeah, Okay, that's the last thing I had. I will say this was a joint submission with TTRO, so I don't know if Kate
Mhm.
Carter's on. I don't know if I missed anything that she wanted me to highlight.
Okay, we saw a lot of her notes there, but Kate, anything
Yeah.
to add or
Uh,
subtract?
No, Caroline did a great job. Thank you.
Okay, great. Peter, based on your hearing this but not seeing this, is there anything that comes to mind that may have been neglected?
Well, I had a few comments. I did see Caroline and the TTOR comments. Didn't see it tonight, but I have read it before, and I think the issues, have been adequately addressed. I have a few other things, but they're reasonably minor.
Mm-hmm. And I think on yours, I don't know if I have the full printout. I saw something about we're looking at monthly progress reports, and then you mentioned something about during the first year, but then after that they'd be submitted in May and December. Do you recall that?
Yes, I just went back to the restoration plan, which called for monthly reports during the first year and then 2 reports a year thereafter.
Okay. So, and what I don't have in front of me is Janet's original, but Janet, do you recall seeing that?
Yes, so I guess the question is, the monitoring reports are different than a monthly progress report, which is more, it's a tool we use just to be kept abreast monthly on projects. But if the commission feels monthly is okay for the first year, I think that seems reasonable. Monthly
Mhm.
first year, and then every 6 months afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then why don't we incorporate that? And Peter, you'd also mentioned, but that we've already addressed it relative to 80% net survival after growing seasons.
Correct.
And that at that point, let me see. I don't have. Let me see if I have. I didn't get all those pages printed out.
Okay.
I'm just looking to see if. And you don't have anything, obviously, while you're driving.
No, I have it in front of me. I had a comment to paragraph 7 and 8.
Mhm.
Paragraph 7 refers to the implementation complying with the implementation timeline. And I just noted that we're already a little bit behind that. So I had inserted, to be in substantial compliance with the
Okay.
implementation timeline.
Okay. Does anybody
Um,
have anyone have an issue with that? Okay. Go ahead, Pete.
Paragraph 8, it says that, herbicides can be used if manual removal is ineffective. And I
Mhm.
think the use of herbicides was approved without, at this point, needing to demonstrate manual removal being ineffective.
Mhm. And I believe that's where discussion went at the last meeting, where Steve, you had addressed that and said that basically in certain areas there were just manual removal was going to be too onerous. Is that correct?
Yeah, for larger trees and stuff. I think we did it more as a tiered approach. Some things would go probably right to cut and dab because you can't pull out a large tree with a weed wrench. But things that could be weed wrenched out, the preference will be to weed wrench it, right, instead of herbiciding it.
Janet, do you recall that discussion at the last meeting? Can you in terms of rewording this so that it more correctly references that?
Yeah, I think that's accurate, taking out the words if manual removal is ineffective, taking that language out, yeah.
Okay, so to permit elective and limited application of herbicides, and then strike if manual removal is ineffective. So Caroline, if you could strike that, please. Okay, and so I guess approval of the commission permit elective and limited applications of herbicides and notification. Yep, okay. Okay. And let's see, can we, I had not seen your other comments there. So,
Okay.
continue.
Yeah, I'll just go through them quickly. Paragraph 12, the restoration plan provided for 2 years of watering. 24 and 25, and then in 2026 for an assessment as to whether continuing irrigation was necessary. The enforcement order in draft provides for 3 years of watering. So I was just trying to bring the enforcement order into sync with the restoration plan.
Okay, and Janet, any concerns about that? Do you see it the same way, given that I think it's correct to give the restoration plan the primacy here?
Yes, I don't recall that detail, but if that's accurate, then that's fine.
Okay, Steve Roberti, is that accurate?
Yeah, I was nodding. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, great. So Caroline, if you can strike the 3 year and just make it 2. There we go. Yeah, and that addresses that. Okay, next, Peter.
Yeah, we talked about 13 and 18, and we're fine with survival of plant specimens. I had put in species, but I understand Paul's comment.
Yep.
So that just needs to be made there with the change.
Okay, which I believe, Caroline, did you made that for specimens in your change? Did you?
On my copy, this is Peter's now.
Yeah.
So we have kind of 2 drafts going, but
Right. But you would change it to specimens, is that correct?
yeah.
Okay.
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 We discussed the 1 to 1.5, and then the only other comment, it says the property owner 24 may be required to install erosion and sedimentation control measures as deemed necessary. I just pointed out that I think all of that's in the restoration plan and has been approved by the approval of that plan.
Right. And so you're saying,
all.
okay. I was confused about, I thought we were thinking, looking to 24 Miller Hill. So 24, item 24.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fine. It's good to have it highlighted there in addition to the plan. Obviously, there'll be several site visits with Janet to review all that. So I don't see a problem with leaving that in there.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Okay. So given the changes that we've implemented this evening, Paul, do you have anything to any comments on this?
No, I think it's good. As you said, the restoration plan should by and large stand on its own. And which is pretty much what happens here. So
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, and on a procedural basis, Janet, we voted to approve that plan last week. Is there any vote necessary for this, or do we just send this out as edited because we have mutual agreement among the parties?
You should take a vote to issue this amended enforcement order. Yes.
Okay.
I agree with that, John.
Thank you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion from the commissioner to approve the enforcement order as amended this evening.
I move to, I move to amend the, sorry, John. will you say it
Do
again?
you want to just say, so moved?
Also, yeah, so moved.
Thank you. And do you want to second that while you're at it?
Second.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry,
okay.
guys.
No worries. All in favor, Sarah,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Anna,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well. Okay, great. So,
Thank you,
planting-
Janet and Paul.
Planting will be done in 2 weeks and life will be wonderful. So thanks everyone I mean, we're there on the paperwork basis, and thank you everyone for your cooperation and seeing this through. It's been laudatory. I appreciate it very much, and I believe all parties do. So thank you, and we'll Laura, do you think will you have an ability to get this out right early next week, do you think?
I will try for that. I'm thinking I'm probably gonna get the revised version that was done at the meeting tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, Caroline, can you email that over to Lori tomorrow?
Yes, we'll do.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you. Okay, then moving on. We're looking at 29 Saddle Ridge Road. That has been continued. I don't know if we have, and there was a question about the peer review funds.
Lori had something.
I
Right.
just wanted to know, it's kind of on the agenda underneath everything else, but to get approval for the additional peer review funds to date for Paul, and that stops at the last invoice. It doesn't include tonight's meeting. So that's for 12 and 14.
Oh, for 12 and 14. Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's kind of in with the other.
Oh, so the additional peer review funds to date is $1,547.40. Is that okay? And so you'd like us to vote to confirm that?
Well, I guess I sent an email out to the owner of 12. I haven't heard back yet, but some kind of a vote, I guess, just so that we can get the invoice paid.
Is Paul? Yeah, Paul's still on. So Paul, is this beyond what your original quote was for?
I think so. I don't have it in front of me. Laurie, can you help me?
Yeah. Francois got bounced out, so let's let him back in.
Oh, I thought that was a radio.
Yeah, so early on, I took a stab at what I thought my involvement would be in terms of number of hours, and ended up going over that by a bit.
Okay, so
Right.
Francois, welcome back. We're just we're addressing. Paul went over his initial quote, or not necessarily quote, where you would call it a
estimate.
Deposit.
Yeah, he had an estimate that was sent out to everyone, 4,800.
Yeah, and then he's and clearly we've all seen the work that that all the parties put in to make for this plan, and so Paul has submitted an invoice that goes beyond that by $1,547.40, and so we're being asked to approve that, and so that's, I didn't know if you had any questions about that, Francois.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, my call dropped off here. So that's fine. I wonder if we can work this the same way we do with all the contractors, where we get a detailed invoice and post the commission approving the expenditure. It gets sent to me, and I'll get it paid off promptly. I just want to make sure I have a record of what's been done and what I'm paying for.
Yeah, yeah. So
did you get the email attachments, Francois, that I sent out with the invoices and Paul's original estimate?
I did. Thank you, Lori. I think I saw the incremental expenditure, but not the original 4,500 expenditure. Did I miss that?
Well, there was an estimate dated December 13th, but Paul had done some work even before that with an invoice dated 11/16 for 1,466. So that is also, that's been paid. And then the
Mhm.
second one came in for 4,881, which was just really $81 over what the estimate was, but there was an initial invoice before that also. I sent you everything that I have, so if
Okay.
you,
Paul, does that, do you have a statement that would show, do a statement format? or-
I can certainly get that. I can certainly get that tomorrow and have my office send that to Larry.
Okay, great. Then, will that satisfy you, Francois?
Yeah, yes, I will. And then in terms of payment, do I pay the town or do I pay Paul directly?
you can make a check payable to Town of Dover and it goes into your peer review account. It's a separate account just for this purpose, this.
Got it.
So that will give you, at some point in the future, if necessary, you'll be able to see the inflow and outflows from that account if there's ever any dispute.
Got it. Okay. And I had just dropped off that last check at
Mhm.
town hall, so I'll do that.
Oh, excellent. Okay, great, thank you. So I'll entertain a motion to accept Paul's invoice for $1,547.40
moved.
concerning
Oh.
what?
Actually, that's the amount that we need, that's the additional amount we need to pay the 4,881. It's just the account is short.
By
So-
that much,
By 1,547, yes.
right? So that's yeah. So to make
Yeah,
up for the
okay.
shortfall for invoices to date.
Okay, yep.
Okay. Do you hear so moved?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Thank you. All in favor? Sarah,
Aye.
Anna,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. Next up is 10 Draper Road. So Paul, you've submitted an invoice for that as well?
Correct.
Okay. And is that I haven't actually, I did see that, but I didn't see all of them historically at one time. Is this that 1,400, is that above and beyond what the original quote was, or is that our estimate, or is that a combination?
I have it in front of me.
Oh, okay, Lori.
The original estimate was for 2,400. And that was dated September 1st. In November, we paid a bill for 2,060.
Mhm.
And that leaves a balance of 440. And then there was additional work done at that address also, excuse me. And I have another invoice for the end of May, and that's 1,840. So again, we're just short by 1,400.
Got it.
And that's to date. That doesn't even include tonight's meeting. So just,
Mhm.
just so you know.
Okay. Okay. So I would entertain a motion to to approve the payment to Paul and invoicing the homeowner for $1,400 per the original agreement for consulting fees.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Sorry.
Can't
Second.
cut your tongue? Thank you.
No, I can't
Uh,
find my mute
yeah.
button.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, Sarah,
Aye.
Anna.
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, so moved. Thank you. Paul, is there anything else you're up with this evening?
I don't, I mean, I had also sent a bill for Saddle Ridge. You gonna talk about that?
Oh, right, yeah.
About the site and or the bill?
Well, I think no one's here. The representatives continued this to the next meeting. And so I don't know if Vadran is online.
I don't think he is, John. Sorry to interrupt. Do you want me to
Okay.
just add this item in addition to the discussion about the project for the next meeting?
Well, I think Paul has sent out the invoice, you know, for
Uh-huh.
work done to date.
Right, right.
And the agreement was pretty clear in terms of, you know, the responsibility of the homeowner to
Sure,
cover
sure.
that.
And I don't want to hold it up. I just was
Yeah,
wondering.
and many of these additional expenses were brought by the fact that the homeowners representatives brought several different theories to bear here, which utilized more of Paul's time, which is billable. So I think it's fair to vote to confirm the extra invoices for 29 Saddle Ridge. Does anyone want to so move? No? Okay, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Oh, and that's for $727. So excuse me. So okay, all in favor? Sarah?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Amy?
Hi.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay. Well, if there's there may be additional discussion on this at our next meeting, but that will be our next meeting.
All right, thank you very much. When is
okay.
the next meeting?
26th.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
So
great. Okay,
I'm free to punch out, I guess.
Thank
you are. You may go up to that Singer machine there and just or Timex, whatever it is. Yep. Okay, thanks much for your help, Paul. Appreciate it. Okay, next we have a notice of intent for One Pagan Lane driveway infrastructure. That's Kevin O'Leary from Gilson Company. Let's see, did I see Vinny? Vinny, are you here with this or are you here with
I am.
someone?
I'm here with this, correct, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, why don't we start off with Kevin to fill us in on what you're asking for, please.
Sure, thanks. It's a notice of intent for a proposed driveway off of lot 5, which is a vacant 4.78 acre building lot. It's on the north side of Pagan Lane, about 350 feet west of the intersection of Main Street, Springdale, and Farm Street. It's going up the hill on the right. It passes historical home number 1, Pagan Lane, and it's beyond that. The wetland was determined, or the limits of the wetland were determined last year on an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation with the commission. And that's the same wetland line that shows up on these plans that I've submitted along with a notice of intent for a proposed driveway. The driveway is to be paved. It's about 325 feet long, and it starts at the sideline of Pagan Lane and goes up into the property. The rising grade is about, without looking at the plans, about 25 feet. And again, it's 325 feet long. It is overlaid. The proposed driveway overlays with an existing gravel driveway that's in place now. The gravel driveway is probably 60 feet long, maybe 70 feet long off of Pagan Lane. And then it veers off and goes up into an upland area, still within the 50-foot no disturbance, 70-foot no structure areas, and then on up the hill to the north. So there's no other work proposed with the notice of intent other than the driveway. The engineering plan was a 2-sheet plan which showed adequate and sufficient detail, and a hydrological analysis was already performed to size 2 recharge basins that would handle the runoff from the proposed driveway under a post-development condition. So Vin and I,
can you share that plan with us, Kevin?
Sure.
And so is that giving us
That's actually what I was just about to ask. Yep.
There's 25 feet elevation change over 300 feet. So are we looking at an average grade of 8% or something, or?
It's between 6 and 12. It varies. The grade varies. The driveway is maxed out at 10%, the proposed driveway. And we've studied a couple other options in the general area where this was the best option. And we also wanted to cover an existing disturbed area instead of creating a new one. So let me see if I
And
can.
is there, have you spoken to Mike Angieri, the town engineer, relative to what driveway requirements are in terms of maximum grade?
I have not, but I reviewed the regulations and 10% is the maximum grade.
Okay,
The
I just
curb cuts through the
wanted to.
DPW.
I just wanted to make sure that was addressed. And Lori, he has permission to share. Okay.
Is that visible?
Nope.
Not yet.
Oh,
Not yet.
sorry. Is that visible?
It was, and then it just got very skinny. There we
There you
go.
Ooh.
Hey, why don't you take us okay, so this is an existing.
That's the driveway that was, I mean, the NRED plan with the proposed driveway overlaid.
I see.
Yeah.
And it starts down here at Pagan Lane, the BVW. It's about 31,000 square feet in area. It's it drains from the north to the south, and there's a 12-inch corrugated metal arch pipe. I'm sorry, metal pipe under Pagan Lane that conveys the runoff that collects and then gets to that pipe.
Can we zoom in a little bit more, please? There we go. Thank you.
Yep. So here's the 12-inch pipe, driveway opening over here, 12 feet wide. Comes up, curves to the right, then again to the left. It kind of does a switchback to make it up the grade and stay under 10%. Further to the north, you can see up in here's where the driveway terminates outside the 100-foot buffer zone. The blue line's a 70-foot, no structure, and the brown line over here is a 50-foot, no disturb. There's a big chunk of ledge here. There's miscellaneous ledge here. There's a little bit more ledge down in front in this area. And with the proposed driveway, there's much greater detail with the contours and the topography and the two recharge basins that are proposed. There are two, I'm sorry, there's one waiver that covers two sections of the wetland bylaw for work within the 50-foot no disturb and in the 70-foot no structure. I've received comments from Janet on this. I just got them earlier this week and haven't responded to them yet, but I think we can satisfy or work out issues with her per her comments. I'm going to scroll ahead to the next plan. If I can, yeah. I'm going to reduce the scale on this just a little bit. This is a 10 scale of just the driveway opening to show added detail for contouring, location, drainage structures. There's a retaining wall proposed in this area. It's a very low retaining wall. There's a drainage inlet structure here with a pipe conveying it to the downhill side to a manhole. There's another drainage structure here. It's an inlet, catch basin style, and conveys it to the same manhole, then to a head wall and a stone swale. Along the edge of Pagan Lane, I don't know if any of the commission members or anybody in the audience has driven up this road, but last fall or summer and fall with a significant rainfall, there was a lot of washout in this area along the curb on the north side of the curb. And it was because this old pipe could not handle the flow and a bunch of debris washed down into the channel and blocked the inlet, which seems to be a little bit of a recurring episode or a recurring event. There's no work proposed to correct this condition. And as you can see, it's in the town right of way. So this is going to handle the water and convey it downstream There's a little bit of treatment with the catch basin structures. There's sumps in here to collect sediment and debris, and with periodic maintenance, it will prevent it from going downstream. The driveway, the proposed driveway that comes up, it's 12 feet wide. The town has a requirement of not more than a 22-foot opening with the proper curve radiuses or rounding radiuses. So going in a northerly direction, the existing gravel driveway, that's this brown line over here. And there's a lot of line work on this plan, but it comes up here and you can see it goes a little bit to the left, touches the wetland line, and then comes across back down out to the street. So you can see that I'm overlaying this to the best of my ability to try to, you know, stay away from the wetlands, but cover an area that's already been disturbed. So that's the intent of this portion of the design. This over here is a recharge basin. It's called out over here, recharge basin number 1, and catch basin, 2-foot sump, head wall, and then a collection area for the stormwater. There's no outfall on either of the basins with this submission. The pond will infiltrate the water that is collected and piped to it from the driveway area. There's no increase in, actually there's a reduction in the flow from the property post-development. The design point is down here near the southeastern front lot corner. There are 3 design points, but we can talk about that later if the commission has time. Anyway, there's a reduction in flow post-development. If you go up a little bit, this is a cross-section or a profile through a portion of the driveway. That's this cross-section line right here. As though there's a glass wall and you're standing in Pagan Lane looking up at the glass wall. That's what you would see below grade. So all the technical specifications. It's at a different scale. So the scale is different horizontal than vertical. But everything kind of pieces together. There's a retaining wall over here, a catch basin in the driveway. The red is the 12-foot pavement, 2-foot berm, or 1-foot berm on each side, the pipe, and then the head wall, and then into the recharge basin number 1. Further up into the property is the second recharge basin. I'm going to just scroll up. This is a 20 scale plan. And it shows up into the property where the driveway goes up 325 feet. You can see all the trees that are plotted in here. And from these trees, I've circled the ones in red that are to be saved. And I've done the tree, I'm trying to get the right word or phrase, the tree,
Basal count.
the basal count, right? And I'm at 43% with the removal of the trees to put the entire project in as shown on this plan. This second basin up here, it's the same concept, collecting water from the driveway into a catch basin, pipe to a manhole, to a head wall, into this basin. Now, further to the north, I'm going to scroll up. Well, you can't see it on this plan, but on the first plan, it shows the rest of the property up here to the north. And it's an upland area. And we were anticipating at some point, additional development or impervious area on the upland portion of the property. And that's why this recharge basin is oversized. This smaller basin in this area, it's about between a third and a half the size of the basin that's detailed on the plan. This smaller basin here is enough to handle the impervious area and the post-development conditions. The larger basin is for future work that's not part of this notice of intent. So this basin is 2 or 3 times as large as it needs to be to just catch this portion of the driveway. You can see the BVW over here, the 50-foot no disturb, 70-foot no structure, 100-foot buffer zone. I think that's pretty much it. Back to the overall one.
Yeah, if you can just scroll up a little bit so we can see the rest of the lot. Okay. So were there any test bits done in terms of what your perk rates are for these retention areas?
There were test pits done up in this area towards the end of the driveway, and these were for septic system. It's my recollection was around a 10 or 15 minute per inch perk rate. I did the testing a couple of years ago. We're using a 1.08 inches per hour infiltration rate of the soils, which I gotten from the regional soil maps.
Okay, and the And then your retention areas, are they sized based on that?
Yes, the size on the 100-year storm, 8.5
Right, but
inches of rain.
Right, but are they on their absorption rate? Since you have no outfall there, is there a correlation between your soil tests and that?
Not directly between the soil testing, but between the soils data from the regional soils data, which is a
So that's where you had your 1 inch per hour for the region soil.
right, for the infiltration.
And
The 1 inch per hour doesn't correlate directly with the perk rate.
No, but that does account for this, how you sized your retention areas. Is
Right.
that correct?
Right,
Okay.
and the retention areas contain without a discharge the 100-year storm event for the drainage
Okay.
areas that are piped to them.
Yeah, I noticed your top drainage area was looked fairly deep. It's fairly deep. I couldn't tell if I didn't put my eyes up to the screen, but it looked like you might have been 6 feet deep or somewhere around there.
On that recharge basin too?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. 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 Janet, why don't you fill us in on your review of this, please?
Sure. So I had 12 comments, questions, or concerns, and I would like to go through those with the commission. The first is, while it's not against the regulations to do a project piecemeal. DEP recommends not doing it this way, waiting until what you're going to do with the entire site in order to really evaluate it as a whole, not piecemeal. There was a concern. On the map, it shows the septic system leaching field going under the driveway. And of course, that's just speculation, but I just have a concern if the lot is never developed, you now have a driveway to nowhere that could significantly impact stormwater runoff onto Pagan Lane. So I don't know why a paved driveway. I could see maybe a pea stone or a gravel driveway if you want to show the lot to potential buyers, but I'm not sure why a gravel driveway with extensive stormwater control very close to a wetland. In fact, at the wetland line, at its closest point. I would just like to hear from the applicant or their representative, why they're proposing a driveway to nowhere. That would be my first question.
Okay. And as a follow-up on that, as I'm looking at the plan you have up currently, Kevin, is in order to not be within the buffer, you have a much smaller area of land over on the left there. Have you done any sort of back of envelope planning as to whether or not you'd be coming back to us for a order of conditions because you would be intruding into the buffers in either direction?
Are you referring to the area to the north of the terminus point of the driveway?
Correct.
I guess
it looks like if you wanted to stay out of the buffer, you'd thread that line between the 200-foot buffers.
Right.
And then you have approximately less than an acre over there on the left. But if not, you'd have to come to us again in order for landscaping or, whether you're putting a building into the buffer. Have you gotten that far on your back of envelope sketching here?
No, we have not.
Okay.
We have no future development plan for that portion of the property.
Okay, which obviously begs Janet's first question, which is,
maybe I can address that a little bit.
Yeah.
I thought you might.
Yeah.
So basically, we did get Janet's comments. Thank you. And from a technical perspective, we understand what she's asking for and agree with, especially the last, several comments we were totally agreement on. So the real two primary issues are, why are we so close to the wetlands, obviously? And secondly, why are we doing this in two phases? And I just want to give the board just a brief background of this particularly unique property. as you know, this is part of the property that is 1 Pekin Lane, which was David Lewis's house. And my client bought the house in January of 2022 and thought Pekin Lane, 1 Pekin Lane was sold right away, and it didn't. And since then, it's been a challenge to get it sold.
I'm sorry, I missed that last sentence there. What did you after you bought the property, what?
We thought we had the David Lewis's house sold to a buyer.
I
Which
see. Mhm.
It's an historically significant house, which I think many people in town are aware of. So we continued to market it, and after a year, it wasn't sold. So we went through the process of getting a demolition permit. Not that we wanted to demolish it, but we had to get the process started. And another year went by, and we had no sellers. After that time period's up, the historical commission asked if we extend another 6 months, which we agreed to. And that was a good decision because we have a buyer. And the only reason I'm mentioning this is the buyers we have signed up with us in February. And I'm not, they can speak for themselves if they're here, but I know through the council that they're anxious. If anyone deals with real estate these days, things usually happen in days or weeks. This has been months, and they're concerned that this process will take a long period of time, and we don't want to lose them as the buyer. It's the only buyer we've had in 30 months.
So is this a buyer for the lot or a buyer for number one?
Number one, for number one.
Okay.
I have a buyer for the lot.
That's what that was gonna be my next question.
So number one is the house. You have a buyer for
one
the
is the
house.
So
And this affects that how?
this
Just to
affects
give
the
them
house.
peace of mind?
Yeah, peace of mind that where the driveway is going to be located,
Mhm.
and to continue to do the balance of the design for the remainder of the lot, we're scared that time that we're going to use to do that, to develop the rest of the lot, we might lose them. We're at the end of our sort of approval period with them. They've been fantastic to work with. Their attorney's been great. So, ultimately, the balance of this lot will be developed for a home. Potentially, we don't anticipate the need. There's sufficient room up there to not have to come back before this board. But we're doing it, and I totally agree with Janet. Generally, you want to do it as a whole, and in some respect, we're taking a risk by doing it this way. But we're doing it this way to keep this buyer, so we can say, hey, this is where the driveway is. That's done. Now we're going to work on the rest of it, which doesn't directly impact them because it doesn't have anything to do with their lot and the location of the driveway. And then we can continue our design work and come back to the commission if needed, but just continue with the Board of Health, et cetera. But the rationale, the reason is not to have a driveway to nowhere. It's to get this part of the process completed. As you can see, there's a tremendous amount of work Kevin's put into this and a tremendous amount of engineering. And we know the board will be, overwhelmingly diligent in reviewing what's been submitted. And what Janet has requested is more than reasonable. We just need to get the process started so we don't lose this buyer. That's really the reason. It's not an
So,
engineer.
Kevin, can you scroll lower so we can see the Pagan Lane there? Okay. So there basically is no other place for the driveway to be. Is it? So that's regardless of what happens, there's either no driveway or that's the only place it can be. Is that correct?
Yes, and we did do another study which had a driveway entrance closer to the to 1 Pagan Lane, and the slopes were too steep. You can see in this area how the contours stack.
Yeah.
That's the area that we proposed a driveway, and then it followed this general same layout once you got up in here, but it was like a 20% slope, which was not allowed by other town regulations. But you can just see the drop off here with the grades.
Sure.
But we did
I'm sorry for interrupting. Is Pagan Lane a scenic road?
Yes, it is.
And this is an existing driveway. Do you need to go for a scenic road hearing, or does this because this is previously existing? You're coming in over the existing gravel entrance?
I don't know.
I'm assuming
you will.
We will touch base with them for sure to make sure that
And
we're not
just
sure
have them-
what David filed for when he put this in, so we will.
Okay.
It's not really
So-
a driveway, it's just a cart path.
Well, I guess part of it is whether it's a curb cut in essence, even though there's no curb to say there.
I haven't heard of it.
The other question, normally when people do something like this, they continue the driveway up and show an envelope where they may place the house. And that gives many people peace of mind to have an idea of where things would be. It doesn't necessarily tie them in to that in the future, but it addresses the original question I had about the buffers that, that are up in that neck of the woods. Was there any reason to not put a potential building envelope up there?
Generally, yes. The end of the driveway is at a watershed saddle point, and I didn't want to get into doing a hydrological analysis to different wetland areas and watersheds with other design points. It takes it to a much more complicated level or analysis, and this is where I felt that it was adequate.
And it's more work, more cost for something that's
Right.
basically still speculative. So,
more time for our buyer. That's.
I see. Okay. Janet, what, do you want to continue with your
Yes.
review?
So given that information, my concern, and one of my recommendations is to have the town engineer look at the stormwater calculations and the stormwater management. But even if you are outside the buffer going to further develop the site, it looks like you would trigger NIPD's because it would be 1 acre total of disturbance. And that would entail its own stormwater analysis. If you're adding more substantial driveway and impervious surface upland of the wetland, it's virtually impossible for you to calculate what the stormwater runoff as a total is going to be and whether your stormwater management features here, the basins and the swales, will be adequate. And to build something now to handle stormwater runoff from half of the driveway just doesn't make sense. I mean, we could probably permit it, but I just see what you are calculating is your stormwater capability here is going to be thrown off completely by building a large home and additional driveway. And that will impact the wetland. You would have to come back to us because you're going to be impacting the wetland. There's just no way you could say you're not with additional impervious, significant additional impervious. So again, that's just the caution about going forward piecemeal with a development like that.
Mm-hmm. And if this were permitted, would they need to get a certificate of completion on this before they can submit, or could they submit under an amendment?
No, they could not submit. An amendment is just a change to what had been already proposed.
Okay, so they would have to close this out and come back with a different filing. Is that correct?
It would be a little tricky, quite honestly, because if they're doing no work in the buffer, but under the WPA, if a reasonable person would think you are going to impact the buffer or the wetland, I think we could require an order of conditions. That gets a little tricky, which is why DEP does not like this kind of project done piecemeal.
Kevin, can you show us the retaining basin 2, please?
Sure.
Okay, so that's well within the buffer, and so anything any additional, I assume you may have another feed into that from up above, or do you think you would just be handled by one catch basin you currently have there?
No, there's a manhole here that I would envision a pipe maybe going across country in a northerly direction this way to a future development. And again, to convey runoff that would fit into this basin that's already being proposed.
Okay, so there would be the trigger right there, regardless if your driveway stayed outside of things, that would clearly require an additional filing. So that makes sense.
you know, this proposal begs the question is if there's gonna be a large home with additional driveway, maybe a pool, other impervious surface.
Mhm.
That catch basin we're seeing now be moved outside the buffer upland. So there's less to the wetland.
Mhm.
And quite honestly, I'm not a civil engineer. We'll have our engineer look at this, but I don't think that's sized properly. And the infiltration rate of 1.02 inches an hour, we've had 5 inches of rain. It's unusual per hour, but we have had that in the last couple of years. So I think the infiltration rate and their calculations, they are undersizing their stormwater capacity here.
Well, I think that's something before, there's no question, even if we proceed with this, if we were to, that the assumptions made here all would have to be run by the town engineer. Who, just for exactly the items that Janet just mentioned. So that's at a minimum basis. In terms of the argument that you really need to get this done so in order to maintain the potential sale here, I question just this is the only place where it can go. If I'm not sure how, if that's the only place it can go, how that affects the sale, unless they're just holding out for the fact that it might not be permitted at all, and that inures to their benefit. But I don't know the dynamic that's there. Go ahead, Janet. Why don't well, unless Vinny, do you want to address that?
I was just gonna say, clearly, I think Janet's correct that irrespective of whether we're directly going through the buffer above, we know that whatever we do is gonna have an impact and that will have to come back to you. What we wanted to be able to do, and this is the only way we could think of doing it, was to get something we could rely upon for the driveway going forward so that we're comfortable selling this lot. So they know where it's gonna be, we know where it's gonna be. And that's why I said originally, to some degree, by doing a piecemeal, the risk is on us. But at least this way, there's always been a great relationship with the commission. We understand, what your priorities are, but we're making a representation to you that this is what we think is the best use. We wanted something we could rely upon, the buyers could rely upon, so we could go forward with the sale of Pegan. And then after, and as Janet has mentioned, and Kevin has obviously concurred with, it's going to take a lot more engineering to develop the balance of the site. We wanted to have something we could rely upon now regarding the driveway, with the understanding that no matter what, we're coming back to you. But at least we could get the sale of Pegan complete and move on with that part of the process.
So Janet made a very good point, which is if things work out, although I'm not, given the grade here, it's hard to imagine not needing basin 2 there, even if because you're going to have a section above there on the upland portion that is going to be higher, and you're going to need, water is going to be draining downhill. So you may need a third basin up, in the other area. But I think it's a reasonable question, which is, how do you know that you can't get this basin outside of the buffer there further up? How would you address that, Kevin? Did I kind of sum it up based on the grade there, or why can't you move this out of the buffer?
Well,
or at least further away from the wetland line.
You mean recharge basin 2 or the future?
Correct. The recharge basin 2. I mean, you're looking to put a basin in, within 15 feet or so of the BVW, which is pretty unusual.
Right. Well, the shape is paralleling the existing contours. And we have to, build basically a dam or a berm on the downhill side. So it's going in approximately a grade, and then we build up the downhill side. And I'm also trying to save these significant mature trees in here that are circled in red. And I was trying to get the basin down gradient as much as possible, but you can see I'm working with an elbow in here. and with diminishing returns on, you know, limits of disturbance and the amount of disturbance. So it was my judgment to place it, well, study it and then end up placing it in this location, you know, connected to this basin and catching this portion of the driveway and any overland flow that comes to this basin. So this wasn't a quick study. This took, you know, several weeks and months, as a matter of fact, to get this, you know, in a condition that we could submit it with adequate and sufficient detail to request an approval.
And do you, on a guesstimate basis, do you think that you'd would require a third basin further up?
Yeah, they would need something additional. I'm just gonna scroll up for a second.
Yeah.
Gotta figure out which way I'm going here. You know, generally with buildings or future development in this general area, you know, the watersheds flow in this general direction. A lot of the
Okay, so
water
it changes, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the high point of a watershed divide. I
Got it.
can take additional area here and pipe it down to that manhole for the recharge basin in this location. And that's what I was trying to do, to not have everything for the future development, you know, headed down into this region and then on to these receiving wetland areas. This one likely wouldn't receive any wetlands. This one wouldn't receive any water. It would be this one if needed when this property gets developed. But you know, it's a speculative conversation. I made a judgment call to place it here. It seemed to make sense. The grades were conducive to it.
Okay, I just wanted to, clarify that. Anna, you had your hand up?
Yeah, so question on this. So I love this house. It's an amazing house. I really want to see it preserved. How are we, it looks like we would have to approve a 50-foot no disturb waiver and the 70-foot no disturb waiver. What would our reasoning be? Do we know what everyone's recommending?
Don't know yet. I don't know if we'd come to where Janet addresses that yet. Janet, do you address that in your
Yes.
okay.
That's actually the next two comments is, while Kevin provided a general memo about the project, we do not have formal waiver requests that meet our criteria for disturbance in the 50 and structure in the 70. So that is something that we will need. That's a follow-up additional information we need.
And as part of that, are you looking for an alternatives analysis or?
Yes.
Okay.
The applicant has to demonstrate there's no reasonable alternative exists, and they propose to take all necessary measures to prevent short and long-term impacts to the wetland.
Okay. Amy?
So I guess, from what I'm I just want to make sure that I'm understanding. So maybe this is for Vin, I don't know. The idea here is to get this driveway permitted so you know you have the ability to get into the property, but the intent is not to actually build it until you have the rest of the project
Right, we would just.
developed. So you would do a COC, because we don't allow to open orders of conditions on a property. In order to submit your subsequent NOI, you get a order of conditions on an unbuilt driveway, and just resubmit this exact driveway with the rest of the plan.
Right, so would file no work had been done, I think it's in.
Right.
I can't remember the form, and then we'd refile. But what it does by going through this process, if we're successful and we satisfy Janet, and we satisfy the engineers, and we satisfy the commission, then we know that, what the board has agreed to in the past. More importantly, our buyers know what the board has agreed to. And I've never seen the board make a substantial, change to something that previously agreed to. Obviously, Once we get to the next level of engineering, we have to satisfy the board in that requirement. And that's why I'm saying we are taking a bit of a risk here. But by going through this process, we would not just build this driveway to build a driveway. But we would be able to just say to our buyers, hey, this is where the driveway is, the board has approved it. We can close with them. We all are very comfortable with the location of the driveway. We continue with our engineering. Hopefully it won't take more than a few months, but by that point, they'll own their home, they'll have settled. We come back to the board, we file an 8A, we refile with, newer calculations of all the various impact issues with our actual design, and we move on. Our buyers are happy, we're happy, we've saved the house, we know where the driveway is. That's the concept. It's not perfect.
So that's a great clarification, Amy, because so that the driveway to nowhere doesn't actually get built.
Right.
You're looking for approval for this, which we would still need to have the right engineering calculations and so forth.
Right, we should like that all of our waivers and everything. approved.
Right. And then, okay, so that's, I wasn't clear on that.
I
So-
can reasonably assume that if, all things being equal, if this got approved and then we, file for a certificate of compliance because we never did anything, we came back. The board has always, we are trusting the board, or we're confident the board would feel the same way on the next filing, that we've had the same situation, the same requirements, the same waivers. We'd have to go through the whole process again. We understand that. But at least in this instance, we will have vetted all the concerns of the commission, vetted all the concerns of the abutters, vetted all the concerns of other boards and parties, and vetted the concerns of people like the town engineer. And we're all comfortable that we can proceed, knowing that we have to come back.
Right, so that also addresses the concerns we had about a second NOI filing. It's the first one seemed to be predicated on if the driveway had been built and now you were doing something additional. But actually, as you said, you file for the COC. As soon as you go to change this, it all becomes part of its own new filing. And so, okay.
So I guess, John, that's where I'm a little confused. So is this an NOI or like we were kind of like we're talking in circles right now. So is this an NOI?
Yeah, so this is a notice of intent for this
Right.
driveway.
Right, for
With
this
the-
driveway, but with, go ahead.
Well, which includes the retention ponds, the retaining basins, the catch basins, all the engineering associated with it, putting a driveway in there. And we're asking, Janet's one of her first questions is, yeah, but where's the rest of it? And
Right,
they've explained to us that there will be a rest of it, but they, in order to be able to proceed with the sale of lot one, or One Pagan Lane, this gives the buyer the assurance that this is where the driveway would be going. And we also can clearly see there's no other place for a driveway if a driveway were to be approved. However, they're also saying that they won't build this until they come back with the rest of the plan. And as they're looking for the approval, and they're also making an assumption that if we approve this, because we would give it a normal review process, so the engineering meets specifications and everything, that we're not going to come up with some reasons not to approve it. But then we'll review whatever they're going to add to it, and then incorporate the two of them together on a future NOI. Does that make sense, Sarah?
No, it does, but I just
Okay.
somewhat convoluted or whatever. Yes, it does.
Yeah, but I think Amy helped clarify that this actually will not be a driveway to nowhere. It will just be an approved driveway that they can show to other parties that this is where it will go. It's been approved, and then they'll come back with the entire plan because of timing issues later. Is that correct, Vin?
We have something we can all reasonably rely upon.
Right.
With
It gives the property owner and prospective buyer the security that things aren't going to change.
Yeah, and nobody's going to cut off a piece of their land in order to get access to the
right.
Yeah, so
That makes sense. Yep.
Okay. So, and then clearly, I mean, it is unusual for us. I don't believe we've had well, no, that's not true. We had a driveway similar at Lot 3 Claybrook, something that is this close to a wetland. But then you'll show your alternatives analysis and put in the waiver request, which was not made part of the of this filing yet. So,
Well, there was a waiver request in my narrative. Both were requested, and
right, but there's an actual waiver request, that's separate along with the, checks. I don't know, did you submit checks for the waivers?
one check, yes, one $500 check. Well, I'm sorry, it was a $800 check which included other fees, but
Mhm.
it was for one waiver because both the 50 and the 70-foot distance requirements are in one section, and it's one project. It's one project, one wetland.
Yeah, Janet, what's your take on that relative to our waiver?
We don't have a
bylaw?
problem filing an additional waiver. I will coordinate with Janet and Lori to file.
Okay, find out what you need there. Okay. Janet, do you want to continue?
Yes, let's see, I was gonna make a comment and now I can't remember what I was gonna say. It'll come back to me.
Mhm.
Oh, I know, this is important. Given that they are saying that the driveway will not be built until they have the full development plans, I think it'd be prudent for us to get that in writing from the applicant.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Is there an issue with that? Is there an issue with that, Ben?
I'm gonna build a driveway to nowhere.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
But-
no, that's exactly,
It's
it's
nowhere.
interesting but that phrase has been bandied about here and there because that's exactly what it shows. So no, that would be a great clarification.
Well, one clarification on that, or just a question I have is if the order of conditions is good for 3 years, in order to preserve it, they have to build it, otherwise they have to reapply for the same permit.
That's true. If you're not, if you believe there may be a chance that nothing will happen for 3 years.
Well, they'd have to reapply they have to reapply anyway for the whole project.
Right.
But if you think, is there a chance that this may not be developed in 3 years? Or is that a market issue, do you think, or
No,
is that?
that's a Kevin issue.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just, I've come across, I do a lot of these and, it comes to the expiring permit. Oh my God, what do we do?
Well,
How do
Well,
we
the thing is,
extend it or,
you can extend it for an additional 3 years.
Yeah, and the extensions, I don't know if we've ever not extended anything. So you have,
Not to my knowledge.
and I would hope that you have, you can figure what to do in 6 years. And if not, you come back, you've done all the engineering, so forth. It wouldn't be that difficult, but that's just the way things are. And those are the time constraints that you would be operating with.
Yeah, I think I'd just like to have a discussion with Vinny offline after the meeting about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's see, Janet, additional things?
And just so to clarify, a statement from the applicant that the driveway will not be built until the entire lot is designed and approved. And also specify that this is for a single family home. With interesting things going on in town with 40Bs and multifamilies, I think we would just want clarification that this would be for a single family home.
Mhm.
A single family home.
I think given the perk rate, that's pretty much a,
Oh, but remember with 40Bs, it's just the state requirements, all the local requirements are waived, so.
oh, no, it's true. So but that's, there's just not much, you can't get that many units in there even under the state relative to that. So I wouldn't be I understand the concern. I think it's one that needs to be voiced, but on a practical basis, there's not a whole lot of bedrooms available up there. Okay, next, Janet.
The next is just clarification as to, there's a statement in the application that there will be no adverse effect on the interests of the bylaw or the ability of the wetland to function. Generally, we see a more detailed narrative as to how the proposed work will not adversely impact the interests of the act. So that would just be narrative. Number 6 has to do with an acknowledgement that there is runoff from the site that drains out onto Pagan Lane and impacts the intersection. And the stream, which is technically a drainage channel, but is a stream under our definitions, does flow from the site. And even though the outlet may be on the town right of way, the source is from this property. And I think that that should be evaluated in order to mitigate the off-site impacts of that runoff. That is not addressed in the NOI.
I think it is, but not, probably not directly. And I think that's something that Mike and Jerry would certainly call out. And is by putting the catch basins and the outflow down in and actually, Kevin, can you pull that up, that section there that shows the, yeah. So you're actually proposing to put in catch basins and gravel, I don't know, stone, I can't see, it's
Stone swales.
Yeah, stone swales. That's actually in the right of way, correct?
Right, correct.
Okay, so you basically you'd be looking for highway department permission for something like that? Okay. So that would be, and that's all, so all of this is subject to Mike and Jerry's review, and as well as Kevin McCabe's. And that would be we would need that review before we could go ahead and approve anything like this. And we're dealing with what, 320 feet of driveway? Is that roughly?
Yeah, 325, yes. 12 feet wide by 325.
Okay, so roughly 4,000 feet of pavement. So we in terms of disturbance, maybe 10 to 12,000 feet of just this, what's in front of us here. So we're not hitting a NIPD's threshold for this particular project. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay, so we probably would want to, well, actually, we may, given the catch basins, I mean, the retaining basins, so we'd want to have that calculated and see if that needs to be addressed.
Okay, I had one thing that Janet said that wasn't, it is a little bit disagreeable to me, is that this is not the only property that drains through this culvert. There are other properties to the west and north that drain onto this property. It flows across this one and then into the 12-inch pipe. So to burden this property owner because the pipe is adjacent to his property doesn't seem just to me that he's going to be yoked with fixing all the problems that other properties contribute to.
So as I understand, the way you went over this earlier on, is those the riprap that you have for the infall and output, on either side of the driveway there, are angled in such a way to mitigate an existing problem that comes from that, which is not necessarily 100% the fault of this particular property. Can you show us property lines relative to other properties on this, relative to where this channel is?
Yeah,
right there.
Yes. Well, see this, here's the stream channel that Janet has made reference to.
Yeah.
And you can see that the grades are rising as you go off the property to the west. So there's a larger watershed than what's depicted on these plans. Over here in the sorry.
Well, no, I think that's what I wanted to clarify, that you can make that case in addition to the fact that you're looking to mitigate some of that potential overflow by doing the things that you have on the driveway down below.
Right.
And so, and whether you can do so to pass muster with Janet, but I wanted to point that out, that as you've submitted, it looks like it would be an improvement on existing conditions.
Right, correct.
Do you see that, Janet, there?
Yes, I see that on the chart. Yes.
Okay, so but I believe, so we need town engineer to review things. I think you need to calculate the total amount of square footage that would be disturbed in all this to see whether or not you need to even on a pro forma basis apply for NIPD's permit. We just want to make sure that we have this encapsulated in the way we would do everything, that we would normally do in any circumstance. and then your waiver request would be a little bit more formalized, and talk to Janet about the 15th, that whether or not there are two waivers there. I think I don't know if you've addressed it yet. You made reference to it at the beginning of this, Vin, but some of the more typical things such as
We're fine with all the requirements.
okay, so the tree zone, the stockpiling, the erosion control, things of that nature. Is that correct?
That is
Okay.
correct. Those are typical where we will
Okay.
address this. Yeah.
Janet, is there anything else that you want to address?
Let's see, it would be helpful if the trees to be removed could be tagged.
Do you have an idea of how many trees are involved there?
17 over 4-inch.
Oh, okay, so that's not bad. That's easy to tag. Okay. So sometimes things can be so dense that just running something around the perimeter is better, but that sounds like an easy enough thing to do.
And then just a reminder, and this would be in our conditions, is that any further development would not cumulatively would be able to go over that 50% of basal removal. So if there was upland development in the buffer, because they were very close to the limit, they were at 43% of tree removal.
But if they were further up, wouldn't that be a different 100-foot square? So they would still they would have to show that they're still above, below 50% in that particular location further up?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so where we're at right now, obviously we can't vote on this because we don't have a revised plan and we don't have any information from the town engineer review. Is there anything else that we want to make clear that the applicant needs to provide us with?
So they do need to revise the site plan in detail for the erosion control. They just included compost sock, but we require also the silt fence and the orange construction fencing. That was in my notes.
Not a problem.
And so Janet, can you do up a quick memo just to crystallize some of the items that came up this evening that relative to town engineer and highway department and so forth?
Yeah.
Okay, appreciate that. Any questions, Kevin or Vin?
No, not at this point. Janet's memo was very helpful and very informative.
Okay. Okay, great. Then if you can email Lori a request for continuance, please, and let us know. And that can be, I don't know if you'll have things ready, for the next meeting, but so whenever you need to, whenever you think you can submit things, and we look to have revisions or any other documents a week before the meeting.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, so I'll talk to Kevin tomorrow and then I'll figure out what we need and send Larry an email at that time. Is that okay?
Yep, sounds good. Okay, thank you much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're looking now at requests for certificates of compliance. So, Janet, we have, why don't you run us through? We have 22 Francis Street.
So 22 Francis Street is really just a formality. You need, the COC was previously issued back in 2006, but was never recorded. So I think you have to take a new vote to approve it, and then you'll need to sign the required form again.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to reapprove the COC for 22 Francis Street. Anyone want to so move?
Moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Anna?
Aye.
Sarah?
Sorry, I thought I was on mute. Yes.
Okay, Amy?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay, 2 Raleigh Road. Janet, why don't you fill us in?
Yes, so this was a septic system, landscaping, and some driveway work. Everything was done in compliance. I did note when I was on the site, one of the signage was obscured. It was set back in the landscaping. and was virtually, you could not see it. It was completely obstructed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the dead of winter when the leaves aren't out, but that's not when you want landscapers to see a sign that says no pesticides, no fertilizers, that type of thing. So I'd recommend that it be moved closer to the edge of lawn or at the edge of lawn line.
Okay, so can we go ahead and vote to approve this, but hold it until this is verified?
That makes sense.
Okay.
This is
I'll
Dan McIntyre, just,
Hey, Dan.
excuse me. The homeowner would really like to get this wrapped up. And she asked me to come tonight. She's out of town, but she did everything that was asked of her. She's got 4 signs out in her yard now. Granted, that one is obscured when the leaves are out, but it's not completely invisible. And it has the same language as another sign that's very visible right at the driveway, where a landscaper comes in and goes out. She really doesn't want another sign that is just in her face in the yard.
She has 4 signs?
She has 4 signs in that yard.
And had that been, had those signs been gone over in terms of the location with Janet before?
They were on the plan.
Okay, and so is there a way to trim back the vegetation in front of this one so that it has a sight line?
I think that would be the easiest thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, given that there are 3 other signs there, I don't have a problem with that. Do any commissioners have any concerns?
No.
Okay, then, so we would still want verification of that, you know, that
Okay.
things got trimmed. But so what I'm asking for tonight is an approval from the commission. And we would just hold that COC until this proof of the pruning. Okay, does that cover your bases there, Dan?
Yeah, we'll get that taken care of and send Janet a message to come out and take a look at it.
Okay, great, and it's right around the corner. So I'll entertain a motion to grant the certificate of compliance and hold it in the office until the 4th sign is pruned to make it less obscure. So moves, anyone?
Oh, so much, sorry.
Yeah. Do I hear- Thank you. All in favor, Anna?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, then we have Beals and Thomas, a COC for the solar array at 61 Crime Street. Who is handling
A
that?
continued, John.
Oh, well, there you go. And then we have 42 Trout Brook. Janet, why don't you fill us in on that?
So, as we discussed at the last meeting, we are still waiting for the deed requirement. Their attorney was in contact with me. It's registered land, which is just a little bit of a wrinkle. So, that.
So do they need to get that approved by land court, or is there something short of that?
Nope, they have to file a complaint with land court. So I'm working with them to make sure, you know, that they have everything they need, and then they'll be back to us.
Okay, so they seem to, because I know there were some concerns there, but all that seems to have been addressed, and this is the last part of that?
Yes.
Okay, okey-dokes, and so we'll hold off on that. Let's see, what else do we have? I see Ann Reitmeyer, Ellen Weinberg. What is there? Am I missing something, Lori? For do we have any other things in front of us other than the
No,
discussion?
we're from the Historical Commission. I'm the chair. Ellen is one of the members. We had wanted to give a brief statement, you know, both by way of, you know, sharing some of the history with you that members of the commission might not be aware of, that I wasn't completely aware of before I joined the commission. But, you know, it moved on, so I don't know whether it's,
Oh,
you know,
so
maybe.
was this relative to One Pagan Lane?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Oh, no, at any point, you, and I apologize for not asking if there was anyone out there because I wasn't familiar with, that there were. But but it appears that they're looking to maintain the building, currently. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes, yes, but you know, and what I would say is that, you know, the team, if I can put it that way for a moment, which I know is not a term of art, but you know, working with the owner, with Vin O'Brien, with the buyers, and with Kevin, I think there has really been an effort to try and create a situation where the sale of the property on which the house sits can go forward with the current buyers, who are absolutely passionate and eloquent in their love of this house. And I, as somebody who's been through that house and actually knew David Lewis as well, share their passion for this house, as does Anna, I think. And you know, what I wanted to just say to people briefly, if they weren't aware of it, was this was the center of town. You know, and that the house, we believe that the house that was David Lewis's house, that is on Waupegan, that parts of it are as old as 1735. And that it was very much a part, that house was very much a part of the town center, much of which was sited on Springdale Field. And then there was a huge fire and a lot of it was wiped out. And now we have this beautiful field, which I'm very glad for, but a lot of the history was wiped out. And then, you know, Waupegan also ties into some very historical houses going up Main Street, as well, as I think any of you who've driven up Main Street can appreciate the beauty of the houses that, you know, follow Waupegan. And so it is a real important slice of the town's history. Hoping that we can create the balancing act of, you know, being able to allow the buyers to move forward with the seller to purchase the house and do what we need to do in order to satisfy the requirements of the Conservation Commission and to deal with, you know, what is their, you know, the carrying out of their mission, which I think we all support. So that was really what
Oh, excellent. Well, I'm glad you hung around. I did not know about Springdale Field. Now I'm going to go looking for old maps.
Well, and actually I put away my folder, but I will tell you that in let me just bear with me for 1 second. I know you guys have been at it for a long time, but in the in one of the treatises that we use as a history book, Dick Vara's book, Dover Days Gone By, there is a map of Bliss's Corner, which this was. And so it shows, you know, the location. It's called Mrs. Allen's house. And we believe that that is the same house as Waupegan is. And then it lists all of the people who owned the houses going up Main Street as well. And one other interesting anecdote that I was not aware of is that in the Dover Historical Society's museum, the Samhain Museum, there's a diorama that you can, you know, you can go in and you can push the lights and you can see where the blacksmith was and where the grocery store was. And, you know, so it gives you the whole sense of what it must have looked like way back when. So I thought that was pretty cool.
So when is what are the museum hours?
You know, I think it's open on the weekends, but they will open by invitation too. It's if you've not been there, and I hate to admit it, I've lived in Dover for a long, long time. I only went just recently and I was blown away, and you know, I want to go back and spend more time. Among other things, they have part of my family's history there too. My great-grandfather founded the Harvard Apparatus Company. So, and there's stuff in there on the company as well. So anyway, it's a wonderful place, and I'm happy to to send Lori information about who to contact, if
Okay,
if
great.
other
Thank
commission
you. Yeah.
members are interested. So,
Yeah, I appreciate that. If you could do that,
Yeah,
that'd be
thank
great.
you. Thank you.
Janet,
All right.
your hand up?
So, I think I understand the situation at Pagan Lane, but I want to make sure it's right. So they're prospective buyers for lot one, one Pagan. They're not.
Yep. Yeah.
You're not buying the adjacent lot, but apparently one of their contingencies is they want to see what the driveway might look like because how it might impact their property. Is that right?
Yeah, and yes, and Janet, I don't know if you've ever been, I've walked up there, you can, if you go to the site, you can really see, that moving that driveway towards the house, even if and I'm not sure, I'm no engineer, but it looks to me like it's topographically pretty challenging, but it's also, I think the impact on the rear of that house would be enough for them to exercise that contingency to get out from under. And I just have to tell you, we were so thrilled when I came on, because I'm pretty new to the commission. I only started as the chairperson last September. My husband was on it for many years, but I just recently got involved, and we really worked with Vin and with the owner, David Mohm, and got to the point of saying, okay, if you can, present us with somebody who's interested in buying the house, we're interested in preserving that so long as we can keep the option of, building on that back parcel. And within a very short period of time, we actually had an offer made by these buyers and an acceptance by David Mohm. So there is a signed purchase and sales agreement with this contingency. And that's, where we are. So.
Well, and also I imagine they want to have a house that's not looming over them as well. So being, assured that it's going to be farther away in the back.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, but thanks for.
So Anne, I just want to clarify. So, because we're friends and we've had conversations, obviously through town council, which is clear. So,
Yes.
So there's two lots, or there's one lot that's being proposed to be sold. Right? So there's the David Lewis lot, which is one main, which is right on the front.
Yeah, and that's
And then there's the second lot, and that's what
the subject of this hearing was all about.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right. So it's
and
the second lot. It's not the first lot. It's the second.
Correct.
To make sure that can be developed.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that's where the driveway is and the septic and all that is to be.
Correct. Some of us would love to have it kept as open space, but I don't know.
But again, I just want to make sure that all of us know that, so there's the house on 1 Main Street, and then there's the lot behind, and that.
Correct.
What we're talking about is the lot behind.
Correct. And there was an A&R, so this was all one parcel. I don't know if you're all aware of that. And one of the things that Mohm did was he went before the planning board with an A&R. And so it got divided into 2 parcels. There were the perfect squares. I have a copy of the plan. God forbid that I could ever try and share it with you. I'm terrible at that stuff, even though I should have learned how to do it, but I haven't. And so that's the situation that it was. And the other thing to know that's interesting is that 1 Pegan on which David Lewis's house sits is in a 1-acre zone, and the back lot is in a 2-acre zone. So the line runs right, pretty much right between the two what are 2 different parcels now. So, so the planning board This approval is dated September 12th, 2022. And,
2022, okay. Mhm.
yeah, and if it, I mean, if you folks think it would be helpful for the Concom to have a copy of that plan, I'm sure that we can provide that.
I'm sure we can, planning board's right across the street
Yeah,
from it.
yeah, yeah.
The hallway, sorry.
Yeah, no, we have it. We have it.
Okay.
And well, it's what was the basis of the ANRAD.
Yes, yeah,
So
exactly, yeah.
We have
It's
it in but David Mom is not, at this point, David Mom is not selling the lot that has
The rear lot.
the
Yeah.
driveway to nowhere on it. He's just
Correct.
Right.
Yes, no, I
just
think
wanna
it's
make
his
sure
plan.
Sarah
It's
is
his plan to
clear.
hold. Yeah.
He's holding
Oh, is
on
it?
to that, and he may or may
I
not
see.
develop it. He
So
may.
that's why I kind of brought this whole thing up. It's just
Oh,
like,
so you're saying, so what we were dealing with this evening, Amy, and that explains why the engineer was concerned about the timeframe of the orders of conditions in terms of how long they last.
Yeah.
So it actually is realistic that he may not sell it. And then he seems to own two lots next to
He
each other.
owns, well, he owns 20.
He lives on
He
Pegan
lives
Lane.
at 20. He lives at
Yeah,
20
yeah.
Pegan.
Yeah,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
so
is
it's
20
his backyard, sort of.
Is 20 the contemporary?
No, 20's
no,
the house that had the movie set. It's on the other side.
Oh, got it,
They
got
just
it,
did
yeah.
a big.
oh,
They
no,
just did a
that's
big
the Bartles. That's
garden.
way up, that's way up at 80.
No,
No, 20 is on the opposite side of the
20
pond there.
used to be
Yeah.
the Canopes, and before that it was the lost their name. But
So the Colburn house is on the other side of the pond, is that right?
no,
Yeah.
it used to be the Colburns.
Oh, it was, okay, yeah, that's right, okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
No,
20 is
I
the
remember her.
Colburns,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
there's
Ginny.
Canopes,
Yeah.
and now it's David Mom's, and we did
Ah.
did the whole big terracing driveway renovation with the gate at the driveway. Remember, we did a COC.
Right, oh, right,
We
yeah.
did an
Mhm.
NOI and a COC, but it was all external,
Mhm.
moving
Yep.
stuff
That was
around.
before me.
Yeah,
And
But-
no, I remember that.
But that's on the other side of Pegan Lane
Yeah,
from.
it
Got
is.
it.
Property.
From
Okay.
this, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, because
On
I
the
noticed
left.
that,
And on
Yeah.
the other side,
yeah,
but
so
you know,
19
if he
is the-
wants to, whether or not he develops that land or donates it to DLCT, we are hoping. But there's no reason to believe he is. I'm just hoping.
Well, I was just
Well,
gonna point out.
there are a few of us who
If
are
he
in the
wants
same
to
boat.
if he wants to take a maximum deduction
Charitable
from the
contribution, yes, I
IRS,
know.
he has to
Yeah.
prove that it's buildable. And
Mhm.
so
Got
he
it.
would need this driveway to nowhere
Sure,
anyway.
Yes.
that, right.
Yes, that's a very good point, Amy. And having gone through
So-
it myself with our land, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, you have to, if you wanna take a maximal deduction, you have to
to show that it
through-
was-
You have to show
Yeah,
what
you
it's
have to-
worth. You have to be
you have
able
to
to
prove
back it
the
up with
you have
that
to prove the
appraisal that costs an
value,
arm
yeah.
and a leg. Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's interesting because 19, which is across from 20, has a CR surrounding it, which then
Correct,
abuts
that's
David's
Mrs.
land.
Close's old house,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then that backs up to the Thorndike CR. So
Correct.
granting, both of those lots would be lovely for him. So we'll see,
Yeah.
or lovely for
Yep.
many people.
Well, we
Um,
can hope. You never
yeah.
know.
Okay, well, thank you
Ann.
very
Thank
much.
you,
Thank
Ann.
you. Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you
Ann.
very much for the input there. Appreciate it. Okay.
All right.
have a
Well,
good night.
thank you all.
Thank you,
and,
thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
And this is Ellen Weinberg, who's also
Yeah.
on the commission.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
no,
been-
we see,
Yeah,
yeah.
hi, Ellen. Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Take care.
Okay, thanks. You too. Bye-bye. Okay, let's see, discussion, a land management work group update, please.
Yes, so
Anything?
we've got a bunch. We've been working away. Let's see. Okay, so Bog Bridge, all the pieces are together. I'm not sure if I said that last time, but I think we just finished it. The next step is we're going to do a mock-up of what it looks like to actually build the Bog Bridge pieces in Greg's driveway before we haul it out into the woods and then try and put the supports underneath it. And then Greg's also coordinating installation, when we're going to borrow the tractor and such. So that's coming along. It looks like we have leftover lumber. So the idea is to maybe put out little tiny bridges somewhere with our leftover lumber or hold on to it. We're still deciding. So there's that. I believe we have officially hired Brian Nelson either way for surveying Valley Farm. Either way, there were emails about going and looking at the file today. Did that happen? Sounded like it was happening.
Lori?
He did come in and he took copies of the deeds that I had in the file, and he flipped through the Mass Audubon plan and just took a copy of one of the maps. That was it.
Right. So that's underway. And we have a new email address, which is trails@. So I think we want to maybe put it in the newsletter or something. So if people see a down log, they can tell us.
Oh, sweet.
All
So what's it
7 of them
called?
who read the newsletter. trails@doverma.gov.
Wow, boy, you know, over the years, there is a whole segment of town that absolutely didn't want anything like that online, because they didn't want people from outside of Dover discovering our trails.
No. This
Yeah.
isn't maps. This is an email so you can report down trees.
Oh, I see. Okay, got it. So,
And then we've found a collection of blazes that we're going to buy for, arrows this way, arrows that way for trails. So Greg or I are going to order that soon. And then we checked in, we have spent just under 1,500 for our Bog Bridge supply. So at this point, we're going to turn back a little more than half of what we were allocated. So we can do that, or we can spend it on something else if folks want. And then, go ahead.
well, I'm thinking, why don't you look at what you could do, and maybe we can, re-encumber it before the end of the fiscal year, which is next meeting. So, just so some heavy
Just
thinking.
Okay,
If
so
not, it goes back and we get a new budget the following.
good.
So.
I think. Oh, go ahead.
Boggs Bridge, is that in Wild Woods? Where's
Yeah.
Boggs Bridge? Okay.
It's just a bog bridge. It's
Yeah.
more technically like a boardwalk. If you're walking in from the Center Street pull out, it's the we'll be at the incredibly slanty bridge over the stream.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And you're gonna deslant that?
We're gonna take it out.
Yeah. Okay.
And then other work, we're going to be working on the strategic land management RFP this summer, and everyone was all excited about a trails map or booklet to give out Dover Days. I don't know. That's an idea that came up. So
when is Dover Days? September? October?
September 13th or 14th. It's the day before Polo.
Exactly. It's that weekend that
It's
So it says a lot about how you do your dates, Amy.
Yeah, well, it says a lot about how my September is shaping.
That's right.
It's the 14th.
Yeah. Do we have proto maps of trails currently?
All trails? No, this was just an idea we brainstormed last time.
I mean, it is the All Trails does a pretty good job. So
no, they don't. They put all kinds of people's land on it that don't want us walking on that.
Oh, well,
then
yeah, I was thinking
unpermissioned.
Yeah, I was thinking about our trails, but
our trails, yeah, maybe, but
yeah.
The idea was to be able to give out something that was legit, and we'll see if we can get very far, but that was an idea.
Well, okay. And let's see, anything else regarding land management?
Not sure if it's land management, but I talked to Chris Costello just about what postage pricing would be for next year, and he's actually going to talk and see if there is budget to pay for whatever postage we wanted for flyers of any sort. But in theory, we could do info on social media for pesticides and stuff, but I haven't gotten that far.
Okay, thank you very much. And then 46, Springdale?
Yeah, I'll talk, do you want me to talk about this one?
Well, I don't
Amy?
know who, yeah, who's gonna,
Either one.
Okay, I can go for it. So as we were working on the deeds for the town meeting transferred conservation land, Amy discovered that there was no deed restriction for conservation? No.
No, the 46 Springdale had, in spite of the fact that it had been voted to transfer it from the Board of Selectmen to us, it had, that the deed had not been respun to do that.
mm-hmm,
So so I pulled out the article from the town report and sent it to the lawyers to add it to the list of new deeds that needed to be done.
and do they need a town meeting vote, or is
No,
that
no,
just
we
a-
had a town meeting vote when we did the.
Right, so it's
we
already, so this is just an
separated out
administrative.
the, the
Yeah.
2 the house lot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yep. So I talked to Mona to bring this to the selectmen. It looks like I was scheduled for the 20th, and then at the same time we got the deed, the omnibus deed for everything from town meeting for this transfer, and so I'm seeing if I can add it to the same meeting. The 46R Springdale sounds like it needs the selectmen to vote to agree with that, or vote to execute it. But our recent transfers, it just needs to be notarized, so I basically need to tell them that.
Okay, and I saw that you, in your exchanges there, that they included the ones that we had taken out of things.
Yeah.
So, appreciate you catching that. Okay, is there anything else? Under land management?
I think that's it. I will send out these deeds, so everyone
Okay.
has it. I should have emailed it sooner.
Okay, so next up, we have, the approval of Janet's contract extension, and amendment. I have not had a chance to review that. And I would appreciate people, taking a look at that. I think that's going to, Janet, that incorporates the extra money that we got from the town meeting. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, so I just want to, it's sizable, but the other issue we have is the fact that based on the run rate that we've been experiencing, it's not enough. So I want us to take a look at at this a little bit more in depth to see whether or not, I just think we need to go over it appropriately, so that if there's anything that can be shifted so that we can stay closer to budget there. So what I'd like to, I think, we can vote to continue the terms of the 2024 contract, through, we can do it on a month at a time if you'd like, or we can do it for 2 months, but Janet, go ahead.
So the way the contract's set up, it's an annual renewal.
Yeah.
So as your contractor, I would feel, and this is what you did last year, you approved an extension for FY 25. There
Mhm.
are for termination by both parties. But it does start July 1st, and in theory, it should be voted before July 1st, or
So it's a substantial contract, made even more so. And the idea if you sent it to us this weekend, I don't think we've had enough time to appropriately review it. We may be able to do it by next week. I mean, at our next meeting, but I think it's I don't see, you ask for a week of advance notice for, submissions and so forth. I think we need to have at least the same courtesy to look into it, especially in light of the fact that we are well beyond what the contract amount said. And the original concept of the contract was to have a, theoretically to have a limit on things. And this year, we are blowing way past that limit. And I just don't think it's responsible for us to uh, just go ahead and approve it without actually reviewing it. And so I'm saying that if you're concerned about having any sort of contractual, circumstance that allows for us to approve invoices beyond June, then we can go ahead and vote on the same terms on a month-to-month basis until we have that reviewed. So I think it's that's what I would like to do. And I think it's a responsible thing to do in light of what our actual expenditures have been relative to the contract.
And and I don't know if we have a minute now to discuss it. I don't think we have a really full agenda, but I have, because we have had such a full regulatory workload, I have not been able to put into effect a number of checks and balances on our application process that I think would greatly reduce my time.
Mm-hmm.
I've looked back on the applications, complicated NOIs done by LEC, Beals and Thomas. They are complete. The first application, it's simple. And then others by smaller consultants take 4 months because they're incomplete. And so I have some ideas to try to implement a better check system so that until an application's actually complete, we don't even open a hearing. And that is in the regulations and the bylaw. But I don't get the applications in enough time to be able to determine even if they're complete or not. So I think we have some work to do on our process that it could really streamline everything, including really reduce my time.
No, and I think that's great. And I think that's another reason for us to, review those sorts of things before we move to contracts so that we can have a better idea of what we're doing. And yet we're not going to leave you hanging. We will go ahead and continue to pay you based on the terms of the existing contract because we've blown past the $65,000, but we're still paying you for things on that. And I think probably the best place to start on that for those ideas would be for you and me to try to reestablish our monthly meetings and go over that. And I think that's because I do not disagree with you because it's also affects all of our workloads and to sort of pull people in a little tighter would be nice. Anna?
Two things. One, I don't love Janet going month to month unless she wants it. So there's that. But is there something, it sounds like there's a bunch of ideas we already have for improving process. Is this something we could all kind of work on, at least for a little bit? I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. My feeling on this, okay, is that I would like to do that, but I don't want to sign a contract that without having those things addressed, because currently we've had basically no check and balance on things, and we have overshot our contract by the time this year ends, we will have overshot the contract by over 50%, or maybe between 40 and okay, that on an administrative basis is not the appropriate thing to do. So I think to look at that, and why we also asked for additional money, but I think we also need to make some headway on figuring out how we can keep that budget a little bit more in line, because at this run rate, we're not even going to be able to keep for our 2025 budget. So I think if we brought this up and we're discussing these checks and balances 3 months ago, then we might have been there. But one of the issues we're also dealing with is exactly what Janet mentioned, was her time has been eaten up by things. So I think we're hoping at this point, we're looking, especially 12 and 14 Miller Hill is out of the road. We don't have a 40B in front of us. We've been hoping this way for years, but this may actually give us a little breathing room. At the same time, it's not going to affect Janet's payments And so I think it would be the right way to do is to work, you know, and my bringing up the idea of meeting with Janet was just to sort of filter these things through so that when we bring it to everybody, we can go over it in a in organized fashion so that we can make good use of it. So that's my sense on that. So any response to that, Anna?
I mean, I think we run the risk of getting behind such that if we need to implement, if our issue is cost and we see ways to reduce cost, we need to set a period in which we will do that. Otherwise, we're going to run into the problem of kicking this down the road over and over, which will drive up our costs. So if we were to not renew, I would think maybe we should do a double thing of we will postpone and do XYZ attempts to reduce Janet's workload together.
I think that's what we were basically just discussing. And that there's no reason to do one without the other. And Janet already is aware of that, and she has some ideas. So I think we absolutely we make them in tandem. But I also don't feel like until we have those in mind, I feel like we're being a little dishonest when we go and we get a budget for this, but we don't have an ability to control the overages. And so I think that, and yet at the same time, we're not going to not pay Janet, which brings up the next thing, which is that Janet she just submitted an invoice, it's a very full invoice. It's I think this is a record invoice, isn't it? Isn't this the
No, the work on the Haven Terrace.
Oh, really? Oh, you had exceeded that. So, and that's again, all that does is that confirms exactly what Janet was talking about. However, the issue about it is, even a 3-month projection for going to the town to get a transfer for money, we're already going to be short. Okay, so and we submitted Janet's invoice the way we normally do things to through payroll and so forth, and then we've encountered a thing with vacations and the like, so that we're now running on the money that we had asked the town to transfer over from the general fund, and they haven't done that yet. So Janet didn't receive her check from the last pay period. So Lori, can you fill us in on administratively where we're at on that?
Well, I sent out an email today just to you and to Janet to answer her question, but it was sent for a transfer to the accountant. I think you signed it on the 28th or sent on the 28th. And until that's approved, I can't process an invoice in Vadar, the computer, the accountant's computer system. So that's the holdup there. I suggested that maybe Janet touch base with the accountant Monday when she's back from vacation and see if she has a timeline, because I don't know.
Do you know, last year when we got that transfer, is that what we followed before, or how did we was Chris Dwelly directly involved in that, or?
I don't know if we got a transfer last year or if that was the year that Chris just okayed more money. I'm unsure. I know there was a transfer, maybe Janet might remember. She has her hand up.
I think Janet is going to bring up that according to code, we're supposed to run this. We're supposed to submit this to the warrant committee. Is that where you're going to go?
I think that's what the town accountant does. It's supposed to start with her. She has a whole procedure for this when you want to do a reserve fund transfer, and everything has to be signed and filled out first, and then signed and then sent to her, and she does the process, the approval process, and gives me the okay to go ahead and use the money, which will be for April and May, and then it will be gone. There's nothing for June.
Okay, so then we're going to have to ask for another transfer. And those are things that I prefer not to have to, grovel. But that's, and that's why this concept of trying to streamline things, and then so that we come up with a a more cogent applicable contract there. Jen, you're going to is your hand, is that my, oh, it's my mouse. I thought so did
Can add from what I know of municipal law and how I've
Mhm.
done in other towns is that only the warrant committee can approve a reserve fund transfer, which is like from stabilization fund. So
Mhm.
I had thought that's usually a formal process by which the board, or you, John, is the chair. You go to a meeting, it all has to be on a public record. I've never heard that just the town accountant can process this, but
No, I think the town accountant goes to the warrant committee on our behalf. I think last year, that's what I'm trying to recall, because even last year, speaking directly to Chris Dwelly, we were told it would be taken care of, and it did get taken care of, but I don't know exactly what mechanism. This year, we actually signed paperwork for it. And so, we based on what we were told was the way to do it. And I don't know if it's a matter of multiple fiefdoms that want to control things. But given that you brought it to our attention that it hasn't been processed, and Lori's has frustrations with getting information out of the accountant's office, and Vadar doesn't give us full access to things. So Monday will be the time for us to double check in on things, and also Lori, you can ask the town accountant that does she have to go through warrant committee to do that?
I believe she does. I believe she gets the signatures, or I'll check in with her again on Monday. And if I had the file with me, I could probably tell you more.
Okay.
All I know is I filled it out the way that we're supposed to fill it out. We had to do it one other year. You did it, maybe it was 21 or 22. Same form had to be filled out.
But I think, I don't know
so-
what circumstances, but this, we did it appropriately. We did it a month ago. I know there's a vacation involved, but we don't have any feedback as to whether they went to the warrants or not. So if we can get that information, and Janet, if you want to call her to just the town accountant directly to let her know that you're waiting for this, or you can just let Lori, work.
Might be better to email her. She might be better to email her.
Okay, yeah, so and if you can just make that succinct that it was approved on such and such a date, and you've been waiting for it, and then Lori will follow up on her end as well, to do that. So that's and then in terms of approving the May expense invoice, again, I think we got that over the weekend. The first time I looked at it was yesterday. So I'd like to, if everyone can review that and be ready to vote on that at our next meeting, please. And the concern about that is, so Lori, with that invoice there, do we have funds for that? We will have the funds once it's transferred. We'll have the funds for
We'll
that.
be a
but-
little bit over to pay April and May.
Mhm.
That can probably come out of the Wetlands Protection Fund, but that is like a moving target. I can't give you a definite balance what is in that. Because Vadar doesn't give it to me, and Kathy, the accountant, does calculations to get me the balance. So I can't give you a definite amount. So I'd hate to bring that down to zero and then find out, whoops, the estimate wasn't right. But those 2 months, we should be good.
Okay.
It's just June that
Okay, so we currently
we
don't
don't
have
know what
any.
to ask for June. So
Yeah, so so that's something that Janet and I can go over when we meet to get a realistic idea of June. Do you think, Janet, that do you feel some breathing room, do you think, for the next month, or?
Yes, because for May, I had 24, we had 5 major new NOIs. That was in 1 month. We
Yeah.
don't have that volume for June. So June should be quite reduced.
Okay, that'd be great. And because I know it's been taxing, to say the least. And so why don't we, you and I can discuss, and we'll get together to go over future looking things for the balance of this fiscal year, as well as what we can do to streamline things. And then we don't have the money currently. So even if we approve, I'm not going to approve the invoice because I haven't read it, but I will, we'll push to make sure we get that funds in there so that we can take care of that as soon as possible after that. Laura, you going to say something?
I just wanted to request any of the streamlining suggestions or processes that affect the office. If I could be in on some of those conversations before they're implemented.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No,
Because
I think
I can't keep up with what I already have, so.
So,
Thanks.
yeah, I would imagine, Janet, after you and I, do our first pass on that we may have a 3-person meeting just for reality, in terms of the, how things operate through the office as well, to make sure that things are going to work, smoothly as hoped.
Well, so I can just share with you now in 30 seconds, the one thing, and I've been working on it, and I can put this in a memo, and I'm probably about 5 hours from finishing it, is an NOI application form. And it will outline every box of everything that is required. And so if the applicant gets this, they will have to check every box. And if they don't check every box, we will not accept it and we will not open the hearing because it will be incomplete. So that in itself will make a huge difference. That's really my only idea.
That's a great idea. And that's
Go ahead,
great.
Laura.
One quick thing. They're allowed to mail applications in certified, so you can't refuse something that's mailed in. You can not open the hearing, I suppose, but then you're supposed to schedule the hearing within 21 days of receipt of this certified mail application. So how do you get around that? There's some other little things to.
So how you get around that, this is how you get around that, and other towns do this. Your application includes this checklist, and they have to submit that checklist and check that everything's been included, including all waivers, waiver fees. And so that's part of the application. So that comes in, and if they haven't checked everything, then it's not complete, and you don't have to schedule the hearing or do the legal ad or anything else because it's
Right, but that doesn't stop them from submitting to DEP. And so that they, the part of it is the statutory thing of somebody, which I've actually never seen invoked, well, once historically, but not in Dover, of, oh, you're supposed to respond in X amount of time, or it's a default. And I don't know if the default functions on the conservation. I know it functions on the building departments and things like that. Do you know if, can
But at
anyone?
least we'll have,
Automatically approved if it.
we'll have a list of the things that Lori and Janet need to chase them for.
Oh, yeah, no, and also the other
in
thing is that
short order, but
we should also have the
can't solve
ability
this
to.
tonight.
Oh, no, but you can also.
No, I just
No.
wanted to
But that's why,
mention that it's.
that's why this won't be done.
It's
in
not
a
super easy, I understand.
No, that's
But
why
I
this won't.
have
this-
confidence you guys can figure it out.
Yeah, this won't be done in a vacuum.
I just want to be involved, that's all I'm
No,
saying.
that's what,
because
yeah, I'm
so
trying to
I
make, I'm trying to
can
make clear. It will be, but I think that's a very good question, because part of the thing is you just turn to somebody and say, here, you didn't fill it out properly. If you decide that you don't want to, feel free to go to Superior Court. But, it's, we need to, I think it's to impose a little discipline on the smaller filers so that it doesn't eat up our time. And yet I also think, and that's why I think, Janet, when we get together, I know there are other things that eat up time that are not just that. I know there are some other communication things, or I think by putting our heads together, we can come up with some other things to try to and then in working with Lori, you know, to convey this information to the public as well. One of the questions I have, for example, waiver requests. Do we do we have a form for waiver requests? And can we create a form that then goes on the website?
I guess that could be part of the checklist. It's very clear. If someone reads our regulations,
Mm-hmm.
very clear. You know,
Well, I guess part, and I don't want to create a problem that may not exist, but do we have people like, for example, tonight on Pagan Lane, they, in their narrative, requested waivers, but they didn't do it formally. Although I guess they sent a check in, but I think the idea of, you know, clarifying
I don't
a
even really
form
know that they really knew that they needed to do that, whatever.
No, they said they did, and they sent
Can we do-
$500
can we-
in, but
Can we
they
put
tried.
a little subcommittee together to do this offline? Because I'm really about at the end of
Yeah,
of
no,
my
it's fine.
of my tailbone.
Got it. Okay, I
Me too,
appreciate it.
me too.
So,
We all
okay,
are.
so, Janet, can you run us through quickly on your report,
Yes,
please?
so a question came up from a consultant who's going to file an RDA for septic testing. And it's going to be within the 50-foot and 70-foot. And they wanted to know if they need to submit a waiver request and submit the fee. Now, my feedback, I mean, generally, we've wanted to see proof or validation that they've tested outside the buffer before they come in for like a waiver. But if there's no alternative, but to go through the process of submitting a waiver request, it just asks the question, is there a practical alternative? And then they need to explain. So I said I'd run this by the commission, but my sense is that if they're going to test within our setbacks, there should be a waiver request because we want to know the reason. Okay, where else are you testing? You're only testing in the setbacks. Why?
So, number one, can you do, under any circumstance, can you, under Title V, can you do something within 50 feet of a wetland?
If it's a replacement.
Even as a replay, you can do it within 50 feet, because
A replacement of septic or?
any component of a septic system, yeah. So I guess the idea, you know, then we're also tied into some of the grandfathering issues that we've discussed before. And so it would seem to me at the very least, a waiver request with alternatives, with an amount to be determined at a hearing as to whether or not they pay. Is that a possible?
Yes, that seems like that's reasonable. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. I still don't have anything from Red Robin. They're supposedly starting to rent soon. They owe us a certificate of compliance request, and I'm not sure what's happening there. I sent out some information. We have an abutter to the Claybrook Road Bank Stabilization Project. She has serious concerns about erosion into the river and some other issues. I sent her concern to Kevin McCabe. He had the engineer and the wetland consultant respond. Their response was not complete. She's requesting a site inspection, and I'd feel more comfortable if there were a couple commission members there as well to meet with.
I can be there. And whenever you guys meet, I'll be there.
If you want to send well, so if we go ahead and do that, do we have to you have to publicize that in any way, or what are our requirements?
It's always a good practice, but we don't have to, as long as it's just a site inspection with no discussion leading to.
And do we need to put it on any sort of calendar as an agenda, or you know, any notice at all to the public, or?
But if we could pick a time tonight and then Lori could post it and then we're all set.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. So, so part of it, I saw some of that back and forth, and part of her concerns, plants had not yet been planted, And then while people were going back and forth, plants were planted. So I'm not sure if it's a cart before the horse situation. Do you know if everything is now completed relative to the restoration, or?
I don't believe so. I believe they had a problem getting some of the ferns. But
Right, right. Mm-hmm.
I was just out there today. There is riprap eroding and falling into the river.
Okay.
That's-
Folks have a preference? Janet, do you have a day in mind?
Let's see. Today's the 12th. So maybe next week towards the evening, or actually consultants will need to come. Let's see, on the 19th, would anyone available towards later afternoon? Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's Juneteenth. That's a
The town is closed, yeah.
Holiday.
Mm-hmm.
How about on Friday, the 21st? What's people's availability?
Unfortunately, I'm going to be in St. Paul from the 18th to the 21st. So I'm not available next week.
Anyone else available on that Friday?
I'm available the 21st. Prefer it in the afternoon because I may be doing a practice ride in the morning.
Okay, so does 4 o'clock sound right, Janet?
Yeah, 4 o'clock sounds good.
And Anna? Possibly?
I think I'm busy, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Well, why don't you keep us in the loop, and we'll have an email sent out, and always lovely to see you. Well, I've done it once, but
Can you remind me which section of Claybrook it is?
So it's where lot 3 is. Remember where the vernal pool was?
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
you go down Main Street and take a right. Boom, on Claybrook, and it's right there.
Well, it's not, you still have to go around a couple of curves, yeah. Okay, great. So
will you
now, will you
confirm
need
that?
to,
Yes, I'll confirm.
yeah, and are you gonna, Janet, you're gonna try to get consultants out there?
Yes, I'll talk to Kevin McCabe, at least
Okay.
the consultant.
So we're meeting Kevin that earlier in that day, right?
No, we're meeting on the 24th.
Oh, sorry, no, I saw that was a possible, okay. So I'll delete that. Okay, so, okay, if you can just then keep us in the loop here and we'll confirm things there.
I'm sorry that I can't meet you guys on Friday, the 21st.
Well, as are we. The
Enjoy your trip.
Okay, next.
There was the Charles River Climate Compact Resilience Program on the flood model. That was this evening. I will send out the Zoom recording if people want to see. It was very interesting. Housing Task Force update. Anna and I have been attending on behalf of the commission. 100,000 was approved for a consultant. We're working on the RFP. And then as part of the discussion in the Housing Task Force, a number of individuals, including Anna and myself, spoke up about the need for a town sustainability committee. And somehow Anna's been appointed the chairperson of that.
Yes, I have a charter to write. One thing led to another, and I signed up for this.
She spoke up. So she spoke up. That's how
Soon. There we go. Soon she'll be a select person.
Right.
No, because then we'll lose her as a
No, we can't. Yeah, we can't do that. This should be where your heart stays. And you can be much more sustainable here.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, kinda. I mean, well, no, congratulations and condolences.
Appreciate it.
Okay, and then we have so that actually that sustainability committee is being formed.
Yes.
Yes. I've got to write a charter. If anyone is dying to have an appointed liaison or a mandatory member, now is the moment. At this point, I'm going, capital budget, you have to be here, and we're going to advise the selectmen, so we need a liaison, but I also don't want to put too much pressure on us.
And
Mhm,
open
mhm.
space- open space should be.
Well, once we streamline everything in our workload lessons, then we'll be able to, do more things like that. Okay, does anyone else have anything they want to bring up?
No, way to go, Anna. I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Good job, everyone. And okay,
Yeah.
well, thank you once again. And hearing no objection, tonight's meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone.
Night.
Bye.